Hello and welcome to my first live stream for a little while because I've been away and the hotel where I was didn't have good enough Wi-Fi for me to be able to live stream. I did record me doing some work and upload it to YouTube, which took literally all night, which is why I only did the one, and then I'll be uploading a bit more today. But yes, hello. So let's just test that's working. Yes, it is. Fabulous. So, I've had a really I've done quite a lot. So, whilst I've been away, I didn't want to have to print stuff off to do a paper sign-off whilst I was away. So, in America, American paper, silly reason, American paper sizes are different to ours, and they're very difficult to file. So, I didn't. But I have got quite a lot of work done. So, I actually read through 9 chapters whilst I was away. So the last one I think I did on here was chapter 11. I have actually read up to chapter 20. Now they're not signed off yet. I've got 9 chapters basically where I've done the screen read through, but now I need to do the paper read through, which will take quite a bit of time. That's really interesting. I've just noticed that the chat box hasn't come up. I mean, I can see if people send me messages, but they're not going to appear on the screen, which is rather annoying. I wonder why that is. Oh well, I can read them out. I must remember if somebody messaged me to actually read it out. So before I start today, so I'm about to go into hopefully the paper sign off of chapter 12. This arrived just a couple of minutes ago. So I ordered some books from the Folio Society. I do like very nice books, and these are usually gorgeous. So I'm going to show you what I ordered. I never thought I'd do an unboxing video. What a sad man. Never mind. So let me see. They are very well wrapped as usual, but then they have to be because they are not cheap and you wouldn't want them to arrive damaged. So what's in this first bit? So I ordered, there was 2 that I wanted, then I noticed a third one that I wanted, and I also there's a back catalogue of older books, sort of classics that I'm kind of ordering as well. But I do every now and then I'll have a Folio Society binge. God, these are well wrapped. So what have we got here? Apart from lots and lots and lots of packaging. Worse than bloody Christmas. Well, we're getting there. Right, so. Oh, and they're in little white cases as well. So the first one then is. Oh, okay. So this is one of the classics that I ordered. And it's a beautiful edition of 1984 by George Orwell. And let me just have a look. As the books are usually absolutely gorgeous. They're illustrated and just a delight to read. I've actually found books that I don't like too much that I actually can enjoy reading. The Folio Society edition. So there's that. So that was the classic book that I ordered. I have to reread that at some point. And then I think this next one must be the Ian M. Banks. So they're slowly but surely releasing all the Ian M. Banks books from his sci-fi series. Is it Foundation? Is that what it's called? I can't remember. So this is the 3rd book in the series, Use of Weapons. Does this look smaller than the others? It better not be. If they've done it a different size to the others and they don't line up on the shelf, I'm going to be very unimpressed. Right, I've got to find that out now. That looks small. I'll be right back because I'm not having that. If it's different, I'll be sending it back. Hang on. I'm such a pain, I know. Hang on. Let me just go and get the previous book so I can compare it. Okay, I let them off. It would be very unlike the Folio Society to do something as monumentally dumb as that. And I was thinking of the books in the Murakami series, which are a bit bigger. But no, these look the same size, so that's fine. So yes, Use of Weapons is the third book in his, what's the series called? But it's a sci-fi series, and they are gorgeous. So I've just reread Consider Phlebas, which I really enjoyed, and then that was book 1 in the series. Book 2 is The Player of Games, which I'm going to read soon, and then there's Use of Weapons as well. So that's good. Right then there's the other 2. So therefore these must be, yes, I know what these are. These are gorgeous as well. So these are both more recent books by kind of modern authors, because Folio Society isn't only about doing sort of stuffy old books. Take me half an hour just to clear up. Right. So, I've got there's my invoice. I will not be showing you that. My books were packed by Svetlana. Thank you, Svetlana. There's the latest magazine thing showing you what books are available. I think I probably already had that in the mail. Right, this next one is Madeline Miller's Circe. Now, I already own the Folio Society version of, what's it called? The Achilles one. So what Madeline Miller seems to be doing is retelling Greek myths. And I remember reading this book originally, not that long ago actually, because it was on, it was reviewed somewhere. I can't remember. It might even have been on Meet the Author, because BBC used to have this excellent show on BBC News where they'd interview an author about a new book they'd written, and I've discovered loads of stuff. But anyway, so I read Circe as a result of wherever I saw it, and really enjoyed it. It's excellent, and again, there's some lovely illustrations in the book. They're beautifully laid out. They're nice to read. They're not cheap. I'm not going to pretend they're cheap. But the Song of Achilles, that was the first one. But I actually read them the wrong way around. I read Circe first and then the Song of Achilles. And the Song of Achilles that I read was actually a Folio Society edition. And now they've done that, Circe, which is just terrific. And then the final one, I'm very excited about this because this book totally surprised me. And it's Erin Morgenstern's The Night Circus. Now this is... Oh, look. And they've got... I mean, just look at the effort they've put into the layout and just the colour chapter titles and the illustrations are almost black and white, but beautiful, absolutely. I love Folio Society stuff, I really do. And I remember reading this book and it breaks all the rules, things I normally don't like in books. So I think each alternate chapter is from a different perspective. And the different tenses, and possibly one's first person and one's third person. And normally, I hate the switching of narrative styles in a book. But this book is so good, I quickly forgot that I don't like that, and it didn't bother me. So it's obviously about how good the book is. And I remember buying a copy of this for my sister in the original, non-folio hardback, and she really enjoyed it as well. So there we go, a beautiful copy of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Hopefully they'll follow it up with again, I know she did another book and I've got it and I've read it and I really enjoyed it. So if they do her next book, is it The Starless Sky? If they do that in a folio edition, I will be buying that as well. So there we go. Just a huge waste of money on books. But which book is this? This is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, Folio Society edition. So it's gorgeous. Hello. I'm back at home, as you can see from the fact that my spaceman's fallen over. Hang on, stand up, you little shit. There we go. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It is beautiful. So I'm going to have to do some reading at some point. But yeah, these don't go abroad with me because I don't like the idea of them getting damaged. Hello, yes. I don't know if you caught. I've just bought a couple of books. So the other, well, I won't go through them all again. You'll just have to catch the rerun. But the other one of the other ones I bought was Circe by Madeline Miller, which is again gorgeous. Yeah, you must be about to get into a taxi. Yeah, so they're just gorgeous, hardback, just lovely books. I was about to message someone if he wants to meet for coffee for the weekend. I thought he might still be in bed. No, the jet lag's worked the other way. I woke up early today. And also, the thing about flying as a passenger is you don't have to be awake for the whole flight. So we got onto the plane. Okay. Oh yeah. I forget how close. Oh, anyway. Yeah. So because of what was I talking about? Oh yeah. Normally I have to work, but because I didn't, and I was in a lovely business class seat, literally had some dinner, slept for 6 hours, woke up, drove home. So yeah, I'm not quite as and the drive home was utterly horrendous yesterday. There was traffic everywhere. It took like 2.5 hours, which is an hour and a bit longer than normal. And if I'd just done a 13-hour duty, that would have been awful. But I'd slept, so it didn't matter. Yeah. So as I was, I don't know if you probably caught the podcast yesterday with me struggling to say hand job for some reason. Don't know why. But yeah. There's I don't know why I can say it on here, but on there I just worried about saying it, and it's not meant to be. Thing is, it's not meant to be a seedy moment. It's meant to be a spontaneous moment, which then generates problems down the line. And I thought long and pardon the phrase, I thought long and hard about putting it in, and oh, sorry. I need to read these comments out because they're not coming up on the screen. So I'm talking to Bow Street Society, who is one of my friends and watches me on here. Yeah, she said, "Listen to that. Your bashfulness was rather sweet." I don't know why. I don't know. I suppose it's because I know some of the people that listen to it. It's not like it's just going out into the ether and a load of unknowns listening. I'm sure some unknowns do listen to it. There's quite a lot of people. Well, not quite a lot, but a few people I do know listen to it. And as I say, it's not. I also worry that people will think I'm a bit pervy for putting a detail like that in, but actually, it was a spontaneous moment, and also I think in my head, I needed something a bit more of a reason for Mackenzie to get cold feet and run off later in the chapter. And again, the description in the book is totally. There's no. I don't name any parts or anything like that. It's all written in a way that's. It's obvious what's happened without me having to say she grabbed hold of his and so on, or they grabbed hold of minefield. But anyway, so I managed to get a lot done whilst I was away in terms of reading stuff. So I really want to try and get, before I go back to work on Monday, I really want to get the 9 chapters that I read on screen. I want to try and get those signed off before I go back to work, because that will mean by the end of the 18th I've hit my target that I set myself for the month, which is great. And it also means I will exceed for the month, and it might mean I can. Oh, hello, Angel Faye. So I don't know why the script comments aren't coming up on the screen today, but I've just had Angel Faye 87, who I've in the last couple of weeks started talking to you on here. Yeah, she's just said welcome back. Haven't had a chance to read your book yet, but don't worry. I've got to stack this thick, but I will at some point. And Bow Street Society's just said hello as well. Why isn't it coming up on the screen? I don't understand. Hey, box. Yeah, so I'm just going to crack on today, Bo. I'm going to just crack on with chapter 12. So bearing in mind I've read up to chapter 20, which is after some quite major things happen in the story. This now seems like I'm going back quite a long way, but I think one of the things that I'd forgotten when reading this back is actually how little of the story takes place before the directives are delivered. No, and Angel's just said no worries about the reading. I will do it. I just Oh, so coffee or no coffee of the weekend if you've got a lot to go through. Oh no, coffee over the weekend, definitely. I've got a lot to go through, but my plan is to binge it today and see if I can get 4 chapters signed off today. So I'll do 2 now and 2 later, and then that only leaves me 5 to do over 3 days, which means I can slow down a bit. And if I don't do it, I don't do it. You know what? I'm still going to easily exceed my target for the month. So yeah, whenever suits you really. I am working on. Let me just check when I'm working on Monday. See if it's an early start or not. No, no, I haven't got to be in work till. Oh no, hang on, that's the wrong button. Let me have a look. Yeah, it is an early start on Monday. I've got to be at Heathrow for 8:10, which means I'm going to be getting up at 5 in the morning or earlier. So if we could do, so I'm going to have an early night, and I don't want to do much on Sunday. But if we could do Saturday, that is great. Or tomorrow after work. What about tomorrow after work? See if we can get some more, because we keep talking about doing the Friday meets, and then never really happens. Anyway, whichever's easy for you, don't mind. Happy Friday, Saturday, just rock, preferably not Sunday. So what I'm going to do now, let me just re-angle that slightly. I'm going to get on with chapter 12. Oh, I've got 4 people watching now. Good grief. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I'm just going to dive straight into this now. Lily's coming tomorrow, so tomorrow is good after work. Okay, well, just let me know. Oh, okay. Yeah. And maybe we'll pop it on the group and see if anybody else wants to pop along, because I've decided if I'm around on a Friday, I'm going to try and make the effort to come in and meet you on a Friday and see if we can get a bit more life into the old writing group, because it does feel like it's dying a slow, agonising death, which would be such a shame. Excellent. Right. Okay, anyway, sorry, that's me just planning my social life on here, but I should be writing. The only other thing to say is I did do some writing when I was away. I'm just in the process of, it might be done now actually. Yeah, I recorded myself doing the work, even though I couldn't live stream it because the hotel Wi-Fi wasn't good enough. So that a compilation of the stuff I've done over the last 24 hours will be going up on YouTube in a minute. So excellent. Right, anyway, YouTube channel is, if you have a look at that, if you have a look at the barcode on there, the barcode on the screen, that gives you a link to all my socials, Facebook. I've even gone back on X, forgive me. All right, catch you later. Bow Street Society is off now. Let me just open up my Discord. So one of the things on there is a Discord server, and one of the things on the Discord server, returning to X is outrageous. Well, it's not the same account, which is a shame, so quite a few followers on the old account, but I left it too long to decide to go back, just because a lot of people seem to use it, and it seems silly to deny myself one particular social media. I don't specifically post on it. I use another app just to post blanket across stuff, but you might make a contact on there. But anyway, I haven't rejoined Amazon though, so I haven't totally sold out. Right, anyway, as I was saying, if you scan that lovely barcode in the top right hand corner of the screen, it takes you to all my socials, including a Discord server, and there is now a live audio channel on that Discord server. So if anyone wants to come in and have a chat or tell me off or whatever, it's there. Obviously, if you do talk to me, it will be on the live stream. So please only do it if you're happy for what you say to be shared live with, well, a handful of people. Right, anyway, I'm now going to... Oh, bless, Angel Faye's disappearing because is nipping off because her baby isn't napping yet. Right, I'm just going to minimise that. I'm going to switch to the typing view and I'm going to do some editing. So, chapter 12, the directives. Oh, it would help if it was up on the screen, wouldn't it? What do you reckon? Let's just open it then. That's better. The drive back to Forest Lodge seemed to take a long time. Oakley was worried about the events of the night and kept glancing at Ronnie and Mackenzie in the mirror, comparing them. Mackenzie was a concern. Oakley was already considering his contingency plan, which would put a lot more pressure on Ronnie. He was impressed with her resilience. If anybody could cope with what was coming, it was her. It was nearly 4:30 in the morning when the car pulled up outside Forest Lodge, and although the sun was not due to rise for 2 hours, there was already a hint of orange in the sky to the east. The heavy gate swung open as the Mercedes approached and closed again behind it. The car weaved slowly up the drive until it came to the house. The garage door opened and Oakley carefully drove inside. Ronnie had spent most of the journey wide awake, and she gently shook Mackenzie as Oakley applied the brakes. "Mackenzie," she whispered, "we've arrived." Oakley glanced at her. "Do you think we should take him through the front door like we did with you, or straight into the kitchen from here?" Ronnie thought for a moment. "Let's take him in the side way. We can wow him with it all later." Mackenzie opened his eyes and licked his lips. Shall I say dry lips? Yeah. Just to add a word there, but that's fine. "Are we here? Outside Scotland?" "We crossed the border over an hour ago," said Ronnie with a smile. "I'm supposed to spit out of the window when I arrive in England." "Who says?" asked Ronnie with a smile. "My dad used to say, and Aidan. I'll take you outside and you can do that tomorrow. Are you hungry?" Mackenzie climbed out of the car and shut the door. "A wee bit." From recent experience, Ronnie knew that he was playing down how truly ravenous he was. Oakley led them through the exit on the far side of the garage. It led to the hallway. Why can't I turn off notifications? Sorry, I keep getting notifications on my screen, which I don't want. How do I turn those off? Do not disturb is on. I don't want any notifications. Let's say I'm sleeping and see if that does anything different. Oakley led them through the exit on the far side of the garage. It led to the hallway. Turning right, they walked through a door and into the snug. Marianne was there in a dressing gown, removing the cling film from a buffet they'd put together a few hours before. Okay, one word changed on there. I'll look with that. Mackenzie looked around him. There was a wall around the staircase down to the cellar, blocking the view of the kitchen. Glancing around, his eyes fell on Marianne. "Shit!" he cried. He could see the aura around them, and because he had slept for most of the journey, Ronnie had not had the opportunity to warn him about it. "What is that?" He pointed at Marianne and then closed his eyes. "What the hell is that?" Almost screaming, he ran out of the snug and into the main kitchen, then, unsure where to go, turned right through the double doors and into the hall. He looked around him wildly and made straight for the front door. It was unlocked because Marianne had assumed that Mackenzie would be brought in that way. He ran outside and onto the driveway. I'm just going to say down the steps. Because there are steps there. I don't know if I decided there were when I wrote this, but at some point there, I definitely know there are. Down the steps and onto the driveway. The driveway leaving the door open, darting down the path towards the front gate. Ronnie and Oakley were not far behind him. Oakley grabbed a couple of torches from a cloakroom next to the kitchen and threw one to Ronnie. "He's gone for the gate," cried Ronnie, nearly slipping on the tiles immediately outside the front door. It was pouring down with rain. Ronnie could see a figure dashing down the driveway through the trees, and she ran after him. Mackenzie, come back, I can explain." "I'll get the car," cried Oakley, dashing towards the garage and fumbling with the remote that opened the door. Ronnie ran forwards. She had not turned on the torch, as she could see perfectly well without it. She could hear Mackenzie's footsteps ahead of her as he clattered up the paved driveway. Then the sound stopped. He must have exited the path and was now running through the trees. Ronnie followed. "Mackenzie, I can explain Marianne. It's nothing to worry about. Do you remember Idrisil said we could identify Yakunda? That's how. You'll barely notice it in a couple of days. Mackenzie!" She stopped talking, worried that she might be missing sounds that would give her a clue as to what the boy was doing. She stood in silence and could hear nothing but the sound of the rain and her breath. "Mackenzie!" she shouted again. "Please!" There was a sound of puddles being splashed behind her. She whipped around, but it was Oakley approaching in the smaller car from the garage, the white electric Mini. He had not turned the headlights on. Ronnie stepped from the path and turned on the torch, looking for clues in the mud, but she could see nothing. Oakley switched on the headlights. and they lit the woods immediately ahead of the car. His phone buzzed, and he answered it quickly. That's what I assumed. Okay, thanks. He placed the phone in his pocket. He's heading towards the gate, but under the cover of the trees. He pointed to the opposite side of the path to the one that Ronnie was examining. How do you know? Oh, you'd be surprised. This is a secure compound. There are light beams, pressure sensors, infrared. Marianne is following him now on the system in my office. Ronnie pointed. So this way. Yes. She did not wait for Oakley to follow as she ran towards Mackenzie through the trees. She pulled the phone from her pocket and called Marianne. Hi, it's Ronnie. Can you see me? I assume you've just left the path. Sorry. I assume you've just left the drive on the east side? If the gate is north, yes. Then yes. He's about 200 metres ahead of you, said Marianne. About a third of the way to the gate. Thanks, said Ronnie. Can you stay on the line? I'll put you on hands-free. Yes. Ronnie ran as fast as she could, not worrying about the noise she was making. Do you know what? I don't need the yes. I think it's fairly obvious that they would say yes. So let's just lose it. So Ronnie ran as fast as she could, not worrying about the noise she was making. It was hard to run in a straight line. There were no real paths in the woods, and it was not long before she became disoriented. Was not sure which way she should head. Am I still heading the right way? You were veering a little to the east, but so is he. Away from the gate? Yes. Oakley's voice joined the call. I've parked the car about 15 metres from the gate. I'm going to head along the perimeter wall to the east. He's pretty much at the wall now, replied Marianne, heading for Mr. Oakley. Ronnie, go west. He's trying to climb the wall. I've got him on camera. Moments later, Ronnie arrived at the wall. There were fresh smudges where the moss had been scraped away from along the bottom. You're very close, narrated Marianne. Mackenzie, yelled Ronnie. It's cold and I'm soaked. Let's get back to the house. I can explain everything. She thought she could hear a noise behind the tree ahead of her. She could also see torchlight as Oakley approached. Mackenzie, please, we only want to help you. A small voice called out from behind the tree. I just want to go home. Oakley had joined her. You can't, he snapped. Ronnie shook her head at him. We can talk about it, but we have to go back to the house. Please, take me to Aiden. Ronnie glared at Oakley, willing him not to speak. We can talk about it in the house. There was silence for a few moments, and then Mackenzie spoke again. I've got a knife. His voice sounded small and terrified. Mackenzie, I want to help you. Oakley interrupted, his voice deep and gravelly. You can't threaten us. And there's no inverted commas at the end of that sentence, so let's just add them. You can't threaten us. Ronnie closed her eyes. He's not, she hissed. I'm not threatening you, replied Mackenzie. If you don't take me home, I'll kill myself. Oakley rolled his eyes. Ronnie took a step forward, but Oakley grabbed hold of her. Stay here, he snarled. He might hurt you. You're too valuable. He's your kunda. He won't hurt me. That's not how it fucking works, snapped Oakley. He's terrified. Just because he has a good soul, Oakley made quotation marks with his fingers as he said those words, doesn't mean he won't protect himself if he feels he needs to. He'll just agonise about it after he's stabbed you to death. Ronnie shook her arm out of his grip. Oakley pulled a taser out from under his coat. Ronnie smacked it out of his hands and kicked it into the trees. If he sees that, he'll just run again, she hissed. Before Oakley could object further, she darted silently towards the voice. She was so quiet that even Oakley lost track of where she was. Veronica, yelled Oakley, get back here this instant. There was a pause, and then he continued to talk. Thank you. You'll not win any awards for doing something bloody stupid, you know. Ronnie smiled to herself. He was furious with her, but he was helping. Get into the car and back to the house. I'll find him, and that's an order, young lady. She could hear rapid, panicked breathing from behind a large tree ahead of her. She could see a trainer poking out from behind it. Mackenzie had his back to the tree. There's a weird comma there, which I think I'm going to lose and turn it into a single sentence. She could not remember if he was left or right-handed, but chances were the knife was in his right hand, if he had a knife at all. Taking one more breath, she stepped silently anti-clockwise around the tree. There he was, his eyes closed, his back to the tree, and an old knife in his hand poised over his left wrist. She recognised the rusty penknife. It had been on the sideboard in Carruthers' squalid living room. She noticed scarring on his wrist, old wounds that had healed. Leaping silently forward, she grabbed the blade out of his hands, and before he could react, she threw it away into the shrubbery and pinned him to the tree. His terrified eyes open. Come back to the house. We are not going to hurt you. This whole setup is about helping you, and we're bloody well going to help you. Her expression softened, and his taut body relaxed a little. She released her grip slightly, ready for it to be a ruse. His stomach made a rumbling noise. He smiled a little in embarrassment. You haven't eaten properly for months. Your body is crying out for food. Come on. She grabbed his arm and led him back towards the boundary wall. She saw Oakley and put her finger to her lips. He nodded and followed them back to the car. Ronnie asked Marianne to keep out of the way when they got back to the house. They returned to the snug. Ursula was there and tried to say hello. Mackenzie was embarrassed and scared and would not meet anybody's gaze, and initially he was modest with his food until Ronnie reminded him that she knew he was starving and that the whole point of the spread for him was to enable him to fill the hole in his stomach. So he did. Once his appetite was sated, he looked around him. Oakley had secured the house and gone to bed, telling Ronnie which room to put Mackenzie in. It was the same one that she had spent her first night in. But before Ronnie took him up, she walked him to the cloakroom. They stood together outside the door for a moment. I need to show you something, she said. Please try not to be scared. In there is a mirror. I want you to go and look at yourself. You will see the same in your reflection that you saw in Marianne. Mackenzie looked terrified. I don't want to. Trust me, said Ronnie. It's a special thing. And I hope it works, she thought to herself. She had not tried looking at a Yakunda in the mirror. She knew she could not see the glow in video or film images, but she was sure she had noticed Danny's aura in one of the mirrors in Ursula's house. She opened the door and pulled Mackenzie in by hand. His eyes were clamped shut as they stood before the huge mirror opposite the coats. You have to open your eyes, she said gently. But then it will all be real, Mackenzie replied pathetically. It is real, whispered Ronnie, squeezing his hand in what she hoped was a reassuring way. Mackenzie opened his eyes slowly and looked at his reflection. How much weight have I lost? He said in a startled voice. Ronnie looked and was pleased to see that she could see the glimmer in his reflection too. Then Mackenzie, initially obsessed with his weight, noticed it as well. Wow, he said. Ronnie squeezed his hand again, then let go. It's not a bad thing, she said. Remember what Idrisil told you. If the worst comes to the worst, it is a way for us to identify the good and decent people, the ones worthy of survival. It means you are one of them. Mackenzie looked himself up and down, then glanced at her. And you're not. She gave an awkward smile. You and I are not meant to be Yakunda. It just proves character is a mixture of nature and nurture. We were meant to be designed. No, we weren't meant to be designed. We were designed. Let's just make that slight adjustment. Just lose the meant to be. You and I are not meant to be Yakunda. It just proves character is a mixture of nature and nurture. We were designed to be capable of doing anything we need. We were designed to be capable of anything we needed to anything we need to in order to achieve our aim. What? Like kill? Ronnie looked uncomfortable. I suppose, as a last resort. But doubt that should be. But I doubt you could. But I doubt you could. Something in your past has given you greater empathy than we are meant to have. So I'm useless. Ronnie shook her head. No, just different. Like me, you are Idrisil's ambassador. At some point she must have realised that you're on a slightly different path. That's why they've put us together. We can help each other. Mackenzie stared at his reflection. Actually, it's not scary, it's a bit beautiful. He seemed self-conscious saying the words. Ronnie smiled. It is. It's time to go and get some rest. There is a bedroom upstairs for you. I don't do beds. He finally tore his gaze away from the mirror. Is there a sofa I can sleep on? Ronnie smiled. Of course. And silence scares me. Is there radio or television I can put on? Ronnie nodded. Follow me. Instead of taking him up the stairs to his room, she walked him through the kitchen and into the garden room. Take your pick, she said. Would you like a duvet and pillows? That'd be grand, Mackenzie replied. Ronnie rushed up to the spare room and grabbed the duvet and pillows from the bed. When she got back down, Mackenzie was trying the bifold door to the garden. He turned and had the smile of the caught out. The doors are locked. Ronnie nodded. They all are. Are you surprised? Mackenzie shook his head. Suppose not. Ronnie handed him the duvet and pillows, and he flung them on the sofa closest to the television. Ronnie found the remote control and handed it to him. I feel bad just leaving you alone, he admitted. Do you mind if I crash down here as well? If the TV won't keep you awake. It'll be light soon, said Ronnie, pointing to the skylight. You won't escape that in here. She headed for the door. I'm just going to get my duvet. Mackenzie stretched out on the sofa, putting a pillow behind him and the duvet over his lap. The sofa is large enough. You can sit at the other end and we can share the duvet. Ronnie smiled. From someone else this might not have been an innocent suggestion, but she knew coming from this boy it was. This boy, she thought to herself. He was at least 2 years older than she was. "Okay, thanks," she said. Mackenzie threw her the other pillow, and she settled down at the other end of the sofa. "I feel bad now," said Mackenzie, as he started to flick through the television channels. "I need to apologise to Marianne. Do you think she'll be okay with me?" "They will be fine," replied Ronnie, closing her eyes and trying to make herself comfortable. "They? There's more than one of her. Was he suddenly in a science fiction world?" So much had gone crazy in his last 24 hours. In the last, not his. I mean, it is his, but I'm going to say the because it just sounds more elegant. So much had gone crazy in the last 24 hours, he could almost accept there was a series of clones running the house. "Do you know what non-binary is?" "No, there is only one Marianne, but you can't call them he or she. They are them." "Why?" "Because they don't identify as a specific gender." "Oh, God." "What?" "I'll only go and mess it up and offend her. They, them, shit." Ronnie smiled as she sunk into the sofa, suddenly very tired. As long as you try, they will be fine. Ursula can't get her head around it, and if Marianne sees you making effort, she will appreciate it." Ronnie groaned inwardly. "They will appreciate it." Ronnie fell into a light sleep. Mackenzie hopped from channel to channel until he found a superhero movie. He watched that until he, too, fell into a deep sleep. The next day was rather like Ronnie's first day all over again, only this time she was the tour guide. Oakley had left a laptop in the spare room, and Ronnie encouraged Mackenzie to order himself new clothes. She was curious to see what kind of things he would order, and was disappointed to see that it was mainly tracksuits and a few pairs of jeans. Ronnie enjoyed taking Mackenzie on the tour of the house. It was fun seeing it through someone else's eyes. Mackenzie liked the fact that he had the top floor to himself and was pleased to see he had a large furnished living room. He sat on the sofa and bounced on it a couple of times, a broad smile on his face. "Is that where you're going to sleep?" Ronnie had asked him. "Aye, probably," he conceded. The cinema room impressed him enormously. His immediate reaction was to decide to watch the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies in order, one per day. Ronnie had said that she had not seen them all, so said she would join him that evening in watching the first Iron Man film. She talked everyone else into joining them, Oakley with a protest, and they spent an enjoyable evening watching the movie. I've got repetition of the word enjoyable and enjoyed, so I'm just going to spend the evening watching the movie. And I'm going to say film just to reduce the repetition again. In the evening watching that film. Ursula especially enjoyed it, and Ronnie had a feeling that she would be there the next night watching the sequel with them. Mackenzie took a moment to take Marianne to one side and apologised for what had happened that morning, and said he would try and get their pronouns right. Asking them to correct him if he made a mistake. They hugged him and said that they would. He even took the opportunity to get a moment alone with Oakley and expressed remorse for his behaviour. Ronnie had given him an overview of what they had to do at the end of the month, but Oakley had decided to wait until the following day to give the pair of them their first full briefing. "Tomorrow," he had said. "We'll make a proper start tomorrow." It was a deliberate attempt not to flood Mackenzie with information. He had opened up a little, he trusted Ronnie, and after the movie, Oakley took Ronnie to one side. "Well done. I thought we would virtually have to imprison him here. You've gained his trust already. How much use that will be to us overall, I'm not sure, but at least I have one less fucking headache at the moment, thanks to you. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. I mean it." Ronnie raised her eyebrows. "Well, there is one thing I could ask, if it's not too cheeky." Oakley grinned. "Name it." "Could you swear a bit less?" Marianne walked past at this moment, heard what Ronnie said, and burst out laughing. Oakley looked stunned at the cheek of it. His scowl returned. "I'll fucking well think about it," he said petulantly, before storming up the stairs to the kitchen. Ronnie was not sure if her urge to protect Mackenzie was because she felt sorry for him or that he was a Yakunda. It was probably a combination of both. She spent most of that first day with him. When he seemed to need time alone, she gave it to him, but made sure to find him not long after. He was a gentle boy, and she found herself comparing him to Danny. Mackenzie had an innate kindness which reminded her of her friend. There were many differences as well. Danny had the personality to match his size, whereas it felt like Mackenzie was uncomfortable in his skin and nervous about expressing himself in case somebody disapproved. They watched the 10 o'clock news together, and then Ronnie said she was going to bed. She went up to her suite. It was the first time that she'd spent any time there. There was a large faux log fire on the wall of the bedroom to the left of the bed, and she used the remote control to light it, enjoying the patterns of the flames as they danced around the otherwise darkened room. At about midnight, she heard a cautious knock on her door. She dragged a dressing gown over her pyjamas and went to answer it. Mackenzie was standing outside in his pyjama bottoms, looking stressed. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "No, not really," he said. "I can't sleep in this place. Is there any chance we can sleep in the garden room again?" Ronnie looked back at the comfortable bed in her suite. This would have been the first night she'd managed to spend in here, but it looked as though it was not to be. She smiled. "Yes, of course," she replied before following him down the stairs, through the kitchen and into the garden room. Mackenzie had already decided that he was going to sleep here whether she joined him or not. His pillows and duvet were already on the sofa. She sat down at her end. He threw her a pillow, said "Thanks, Ronnie," and somehow managed to fall asleep instantly. Ronnie struggled to get completely comfortable, but managed to sleep eventually. The next morning, Ronnie went for a walk around the woods and then spent half an hour on the treadmill in the gym. Oakley found her there. She had just stepped down from the treadmill and was toweling the sweat from her body. "Can we talk for a moment?" he asked. "In private?" Ronnie nodded, and Oakley indicated the door through to the cinema room. He gestured for her to sit down and turned one of the other sofas around so they were facing each other. "What is it?" he asked. "I need to put you under some extra pressure. There's no avoiding it." Ronnie raised her eyebrows. "Go on." "Well, firstly, thank you for winning over Mackenzie's trust. As I said yesterday, that's one less problem I have. However, in just under 3 weeks, I need the pair of you coached. You need to be able to confidently deliver Idris's directives for England to Derek Cockerell-Wright. On the same day, Mackenzie has to deliver his directives to the Scottish Cabinet Secretary for the Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform, which is a bloody mouthful. That's Fiona McRae. I'm not out to flatter your ego, but the truth is you can handle it. I'm not convinced Mackenzie can. He doesn't know the plan yet, so I want to change it. How can I help? The demands to each minister are quite different, tailored to each country, so you both have different things to learn. I want to tell Mackenzie that you are both presenting to both ministers together. He will be there when you talk to Cockerell-Wright, and you'll be there with him when he talks to McRae. So if he flounders, I can back him up. Exactly. It means you will need to know the Scottish directives as well as you know your own. What about Wales? Ronnie was surprised she had not considered that before. They have their own set-up? And Northern Ireland? Oakley leaned conspiratorially towards her. The trees don't consider it a separate territory to the rest of Ireland for some reason. Ouch, she smiled. So, to clarify, every country in the world will get these directives on the same day? Yes, agreed Oakley. Well, apart from South Sudan, it's been around for less than 10 years, so Idrisil is not prepared for it. Poor Farad's charm will have his work cut out. He has to try and deliver the message practically simultaneously to two fucked up regimes. He realised that he'd sworn. Sorry, messed up. South Sudan probably won't get the message on the right day. Sudan has recently suffered a coup, and South Sudan is in the middle of a civil war. He shook his head. You don't need to know any of that. But at least the two governments you need to deliver our directives to are vaguely functional. As he was talking, Oakley walked over to the drinks cabinet and poured himself a single malt. "Once you have presented to Cockerell-Wright in the morning, we will fly you by private jet up to Edinburgh so you can see McRae in the afternoon." Private jet? Isn't that a bit of a contradiction? What do you mean? Ronnie put on a voice. "Hello, Minister. Here is a series of demands to save the environment that will cripple the economy, close most airlines, and make petrol only affordable to the super rich. By now, I'm off to Holyrood in my private jet." Well, at least you've read your brief. Oakley rolled his eyes. "We're not being audited, you know. We are now." "We're not now. Perhaps we should behave as though we were?" Oakley shook his head. "Why does everyone like making my life so bloody complicated? OK then, Missy, I will drive you to Heathrow and you can catch a commercial flight up. Economy class. Is that better for you? Is that OK for you? Better. Good. I'll be in business with a free champagne. I'll bloody need it." I'm going to put club because he's obviously going to be flying British Airways, and that's what they call... I'll be in club with a free champagne. I'll bloody need it. "Fine," retorted Ronnie. "I only have one stipulation." "One more stipulation, surely." "Whatever. In all of this, whatever you do, don't make Mackenzie feel more inadequate than he already does. As far as he is concerned, our working together was always the plan." "That's precisely what I intended," growled Oakley. He took another gulp of whisky. Ronnie agreed that Oakley would make his first presentation to them at 1 o'clock after lunch. Mackenzie had still been asleep on the sofa when Ronnie had got up. When she could not find him straight away after a visit to the gym and chat with Oakley, Marianne informed her that he was walking in the woods. Nothing to worry about, they said. Now he has a phone, we can see where he is. From his position, I think he's found the primary interface unit. The tree, said Ronnie with a chuckle. I'll remind him we have lunch soon, followed by class, where you will be power-pointed to death. Ronnie sent Mackenzie a text reminding him that they were needed at 1. She got a reply. It was a green vomiting face emoji. Mackenzie arrived about 15 minutes after Marianne served lunch. He and Ronnie were still recovering from their time spent being briefed by Idrisil, Mackenzie more so. They ate volumes of food that would make a normal person feel sick. At 10 to 1, they received a text message from Oakley saying that he was starting the presentation in his office at 1 o'clock sharp. Ronnie was tempted to be late just to annoy him, but realised that today was not the day. She sat with Mackenzie in the garden room for the last 15 minutes with the television on. He was nervous, that much was obvious, and had been staring at the floor for the last few minutes. He finally looked up at her. I don't think I can do this. Ronnie tried to sound reassuring. Today you don't have to do anything. All we are doing is listening. It's like school. I never hated school, admitted Mackenzie. When I was little, I quite liked it. Before we lost Mummy. He went red. Sorry, I was 4 when she died. I never thought of her as anything else. This was the first time he'd opened up to Ronnie about his past. Don't apologise, she said gently. My stepmom was bad news, continued Mackenzie. She got my dad hooked on drugs. They would do anything to get money for stuff. Anything. I remember once this nasty guy, I think he was their dealer, came over demanding money. When they couldn't pay, he said he would take payment in kind, so he used to drag her upstairs. The noises that came up from there, Dad used to tell me they were play fighting. We used to sit in the kitchen listening to music really loud. Sometimes Dad was crying. Mackenzie's face had gone ashen. I was 6 when that happened. He was on the verge of tears. Did you ever get counselling? I was given some sessions a couple of years ago, but I didn't go. I mean, what would be the point? Ronnie wiped her hands across her face. I think it would help. We could ask Oakley to arrange it if you like. We're in this for long term, Mackenzie. We need you, but we want to help you as well. The BBC News channel started playing its countdown to the top of the hour. Ronnie bounced up onto her feet and held a hand out to Mackenzie. We'll carry on with this chat later. It's school time. Reluctantly, Mackenzie took her hand and allowed himself to be pulled up. He was light as a feather, Ronnie thought. They walked through the kitchen into the hall. The news theme was playing, still audible through the doors. Mackenzie was about to knock, but Ronnie held his hand back. Wait, she said. They heard the news theme reach its climax from the garden room. Here are the headlines at 1 o'clock, came the voice. Realising her game, Mackenzie knocked on the door. Come in, rasped Oakley. Ronnie pushed open the door, and the two of them walked in. Ronnie had only been in the study twice, both times briefly. Once when Oakley had shown her around, and yesterday when she had shown Mackenzie. There was a desk at the far end by the bay windows at the front of the house, and a sofa along the wall adjacent to the dining room, upon which sat Ursula and Marianne. The desk had a PC on it, and there was a projector on the ceiling pointed at the opposite wall. Oakley clicked a button on the mouse and a screen descended. There were a pair of empty chairs facing Oakley's desk. Oakley gestured to them, and Ronnie and Mackenzie sat down. Thank you for getting here on time, said Oakley. This is an informal session. All of them are, really. I will do a presentation, which I would ask is not interrupted. Then I'll go through the headlines for the English directives and then the Scottish directives, at which point you can ask questions. A line drawing of a tree was projected onto the screen. Beneath it, in a Baroque font, were the words Operation Arbor. And beneath that, I think I've spelt that the American way. Hang on, let me just correct that. Yeah, I have, look. And beneath that, in a more ordinary and readable typeface, the words England and Scotland. For some reason, the sincerity of it sent Mackenzie into a fit of giggles, which set Ronnie off as well. Yes, very funny, snapped Oakley. Welcome to your brief for Operation Arbor, England and Scotland zones. A new picture came up, a black and white image of a woman in her late 60s with cropped white hair and a serious look on her face. This is Professor Sophia Meyer. She is an atmospheric physicist and climatologist. She is also the lead scientific advisor to Arbor. Still spelt wrong. I'm going to have to check that, I think. To Arbor Associates. She has led a team of scientists and researchers over the last 10 years to put together this worldwide package to return our planet to a state where we can stop carbon emissions, minimise the use of fossil fuels and thereby deliver the Yggdrasil directives. Her team have put together the whole package, broken down by country, that will be delivered simultaneously everywhere on the last day of this month. The targets and goals are country specific. In larger populated countries, China, India and the United States, the goals are region specific, are being delivered by more than one ambassador. In total, the Yggdrasil directives are being delivered to 197 different countries, and Yggdrasil has defined what she thinks is a country, so suck it up, China, Russia, Taiwan and Kosovo do count. In total, 237 ambassadors are being briefed, like you, over the next few days. 82 of you are still being briefed by Yggdrasil, but over 150 have been released in the last 2 days, and it is expected that the last few will be released before the end of the week. There are 237 of us, Ronnie asked. Indeed, confirmed Oakley. And they all have facilities like this one. Yes, Arbor Associates has offices in every country in the world. It must be worth a fortune. Oakley smiled. It has been amassing a fortune for over 3 centuries, manoeuvring people into influential positions globally. It was hoped that none of this would be necessary. Sadly, we humans have let our greed and lust for convenience outweigh everything else. The package that Professor Meyer and her team have put together is challenging. The governments are not going to like what they're being told to do. So here is a key list of the global demands. Oakley changed the slide on the screen before them. It had a graph showing human numbers from the year 1000 to the present day. As you can see, the human population has grown at an exponential and unsustainable rate in recent years. 1000 years ago, the population was around the 300 million mark. It had only grown by about 100 million in the previous 1,000 years. It took another 700 years to double to about 600 million, then 150 years to double again to 1.2 billion. Since then it has risen to over 7.5 billion, with projections suggesting we'll hit 10 billion in the next 50 years. Ronnie excelled. Wow, I had no idea the growth was going to be that extreme. Oakley raised his eyebrows. Quite. It is borderline unsustainable now without another third again on top. Yggdrasil needs us to reduce the population. By how much? It was the first thing. By how much? It was the first thing Mackenzie had said since they entered the room. By about 90%. Ronnie almost choked. They want to remove 9 out of 10 people. They have set the upper target for humanity at 1 billion. They say they can have a balanced ecology where we live a way we find comfortable without wrecking the planet, as long as there are no more than 1 billion of us. There was shock in Mackenzie's eyes. How is that going to happen? They need to see signs of the birth rate dropping dramatically and immediately. The government have several options. He paused for a moment. Before I turn the page, please remember that these are options. We are not advocating any of them. A list came up on the screen. 1. Birth permits, read Oakley. People may only have children when they have a permit. Anyone who has a child without one will have to choose between massively increased taxation, prison or abortion. Mackenzie closed his eyes and shook his head. They won't go for this. You can't take away basic freedoms. Ronnie nodded. And it means the super rich will be immune as usual. I'm not saying I agree with any of this. The government will have to decide how to implement it. 2. Massively increased pay for women. Invert the gender pay gap and then some. Make it financially impossible for the current sexual division of labour to continue. Ronnie nodded. I approve of that one. Of course you do, muttered Ronnie. 3. Compulsory sterilisation. Ronnie stood up. We're talking about absolute state control. Nothing will ever be the same. Oakley snarled. Sit down. I don't like it either, but I have to give the options for you to present. And yes, you're right. Nothing will ever be the same again. It cannot be. This is about changing the world for the better. It will be difficult and horrible, but if as a race we don't sort this out for ourselves, then Yggdrasil will do it for us, which, trust me, will be far, far worse. Mackenzie, who had been silent through this, stood up. He looked very pale in the face and clutched at his chest. His breathing was rapid. Ronnie jumped up too. Are you all right? No, he struggled to get the word out. I think I'm having a heart attack. Marianne immediately ran over to him. They dragged him over to the sofa. Ursula moved out of the way to give him some room. Describe how you feel, said Marianne. Pins and needles all over. His hands were clenched in a strange claw shape. Any tightness around the chest? Yes, and I'm feeling dizzy. Ronnie was standing next to Marianne. I think I know what this is. Marianne nodded. Panic attack. Ronnie agreed. Do you have a paper bag anywhere nearby? Well, yes, I have a stash of them in my desk, said Oakley sarcastically. Marianne rolled their eyes and left the room in a hurry. A few minutes later they were back with an empty paper supermarket mushroom bag in their hand. Hold this like it's got a bottle in it, they demanded, handing it to Mackenzie, and breathe in and out of it. Mackenzie did as he was told, and within a few minutes the colour started to return to his cheeks. Oakley was standing over him, peering down. Let's have 10 minutes, then we will continue. 10 minutes? scoffed Ronnie. We have a lot to get through, snapped Oakley, and perhaps he'd better sit it out. We haven't even come to the extreme stuff yet. It might be for the best, said Ronnie as she sat down beside him. Mackenzie shook his head. No, shying away is near going to get me through this. He took the tissue Ronnie was offering to him and dried his eyes. Could I have a cup of sweet tea? Marianne nodded and left. Slowly Mackenzie's breathing returned to normal. Oakley stood near him, trying not to look impatient or annoyed at the interruption. Marianne returned a few minutes later with a tray containing a large teapot, mugs, a jug of milk and some sugar. Ursula looked disapprovingly at the mugs but took over and poured the tea anyway, making sure the first mug with 3 sugars went to Mackenzie. Marianne had also bought some shortbread they'd baked themselves, and Mackenzie ate 2 pieces of that as well. Once all had mugs in their hands, Oakley continued. So, to summarise the section on population, the proposal is not to kill anyone, just drastically reduce the birth rate. The population can be at an acceptable level within 60 years. He clicked a button on the mouse. The screen cleared and a new title came up. Fossil fuels, read Oakley. The directives state that we must end our resilience on oil within 10 years. Again, how the human race achieves this is up to us. The suggestion from Professor Meyer and her team is that the price of fuel is escalated from current levels to 10 times the price over 5 years. People will be told what the increases will be and when to allow them to range employment close to their own homes. In addition, we suggest a rise in vehicle duty from current rates to £5,000 per year. The additional revenue could be used to refund renewable energy sources and public transport, which we recommend become free for any journey of fewer than 50 miles. So only the rich will be able to afford a car, snorted Mackenzie. Yes, said Oakley. With population dropping and car use cut back, we should reduce carbon emissions rapidly, which is the whole point of the directive. What about airlines? Asked Ronnie. Travel for business and tourism purposes will be banned. Airlines will be shut down. You're suggesting no more aeroplanes. What about the people involved in the airlines themselves and the plane manufacturers? Cargo will still be allowed, but at a massively reduced rate. Each government will be encouraged to put infrastructure in place to enable local food production. More on that in a minute. Flights must be reduced to 1% of their current level. There are approximately 100,000 flights every day around the world. That's true. Isn't that amazing? This must be reduced to 1,000. Each government has been allocated a number they can have per day based on their population. Ronnie exhaled and looked shocked. I hadn't realised that we had this much to change. Oakley put up the next slide. Next, food. Meat consumption must be eradicated in 10 years. The trees want us all to be vegan. Asked Mackenzie. Ironic, isn't it? Asked Oakley. They recommend a plant-based diet for the human race within 10 years. Again, meat product consumption is to be managed with taxation. Mackenzie shook his head. No cars, no... Oh. I don't know if I like this next interaction. It's supposed to be vaguely amusing, but I don't think it is. Well, I'll read it anyway, and then I'll probably edit it out. The trees want us to be vegan, asked Mackenzie. Ironic, isn't it, said Oakley. They recommend a plant-based diet for the human race within 10 years. Again, meat production consumption is to be managed with taxation. Mackenzie shook his head. No cars, no meat, no holidays to Magaluf. What will people fucking do with themselves? Well, they won't risk fucking, will they? Snapped Oakley. Language, said Ronnie angrily. My, we are a little bossy boots today, aren't we? It's about respect, dear, interrupted Ursula. I don't want to hear your foul language either. I've already made enough of a comment about his language, and I don't think it needs to be repeated, so I'm actually going to edit that bit out. And also, it's quite unlike Mackenzie to swear, so I'm just going to... Yeah, that whole little interaction's going to go. What will people lose? Him swearing. Oops. And then just lose that whole... Oh, come on. No cars, no meat, no holidays to Magaluf. What will people do themselves? So that's the high level, said Oakley. There are some specific targets for each of you to deliver to your respective government, but broadly these are the same. Just some of the individual recommendations will be different. How will it be policed? Asked Ronnie. I was coming to that. Oakley changed the slide to the word, and so the word compliance came up on the screen. Each country has a small team that will be given access to any facility they need to go to determine the goals are being met. I know you've both visited the interface unit on the grounds here. Our scientists will brief you on the results of their audits and you will deliver the verdict back to the trees. There are interim targets that have to be met. If they are not, and if they are not, then there will be consequences. Which are? Mackenzie looked uncomfortable. You won't like this next bit, said Oakley. I'd have your little paper bag on standby if I were you. Mackenzie looked upset, and Ronnie glared at the older man. Sorry, I wasn't trying to be insensitive. This bit bothered me when I first saw it. I'm just going to change that to wasn't. I wasn't trying to be insensitive. This bit bothered me when I first saw it. He hit the next button and the words consequences for non-compliance came up. If, as a race, we failed to meet our targets for 2 consecutive years, the trees will stop breathing. They will also make sure the plankton, which produces a high percentage of the oxygen on our planet, stops. The human race will be dead within months. He paused to let his words sink in. Mackenzie was staring at the floor. He looked up, tears in his eyes. All of us? No. Oakley shook his head. All of the ambassadors will survive. The trees will take them in. For normal communications purposes, the trees expect us to bring our own reserves of fat to keep us alive. But we could not get fat enough to survive 3 or 4 years in the tree. They will divert the majority of their resources into keeping us alive. Any tree that saves a human being will almost certainly die once they are released. In addition to the ambassadors, Arbor Associates have people in place to help identify Yukunda to populate the world after the rest of the human race has died. Professor Meyer has created a list of skills we need to identify in them for society to function afterwards. There was a pause. Evidently Ursula and Marianne already knew this. The tree had explained that the Yukunda were people worthy of survival, but neither Mackenzie nor Ronnie had realised that they may be the only people that survived. Ronnie and Mackenzie looked at each other. Are you okay? Ronnie whispered. Mackenzie frowned. No, how could I be? In two years the trees may decide to wipe us all out. Not us. Not us. Ronnie lowered her eyes. Well, that's all right then. Ronnie looked up. Danny. Can I save Danny? Ursula smiled. Here's Yukunda, so yes, you can save Danny. Ronnie breathed a large sigh of relief. Then another thought occurred. What about my parents? Ursula shook her head. They are lovely people, but they are not Yukunda. There are almost no exceptions. Ambassadors and Yukunda may survive. That is all. Mackenzie let out a pained cry. Ronnie blinked back tears. Almost no exceptions. There was an uncomfortable silence. Oakley eventually broke it. Well, me and a few others. I'm neither a child of Yggdrasil or Yukunda, but I may be needed in the world after. We are designated Opus. And was that in the terms and conditions of the job? Snapped Ronnie. Is that why you accepted it? Opus status? A free pass to the future? Of course not, snapped Oakley. Before all of this I was, and still am, a very committed environmental activist. I'm sure you were, retorted Ronnie. I was. I was Cromwell, the Rainbow Warrior, in the 80s when I was a kid. In 1985 to be precise. Do you know what the Rainbow Warrior was? No. Well, bloody Google it, snapped Oakley. If you think I'm just a hired gun who got lucky, you can think again, young lady. Marianne shook her head at him. Ronnie, we understand how it seems. You just can't break the rule. You just can't break the rules. Let us hope we can make the governments do what they need to do. How are we going to do that? That's my last slide, said Oakley. The words on the screen changed to enforcing compliance. Oakley stood in front of the desk and looked straight at Ronnie and Mackenzie. On the 1st of May, every plant, blob of algae, indeed anything on the planet that photosynthesises during the day will do the opposite. They will absorb oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Within a couple of weeks, the oxygen content of the atmosphere will have reduced by a detectable level. Cities at higher altitudes may need to be evacuated. It will go on for a month. This will demonstrate that Yggdrasil is both capable and willing to sterilise the planet of the human race. He turned the screen off. And hang on, let me just lose it. I seem to be using it. I let that sink in a lot, so I'm just deleting it every time I use it. Let's do the paragraph again. That's the last slide, said Oakley. The words on the screen changed to enforcing compliance. Oakley stood in the front of the desk in front of the desk and looked straight at Ronnie and Mackenzie. On the 1st of May, every plant, blob of algae, indeed anything on the planet that photosynthesises during the day will do the opposite. They will absorb oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Within a couple of weeks, the oxygen content of the atmosphere will have reduced by a detectable level. Cities at higher altitudes may need to be evacuated. It will go on for a month. This will demonstrate that Idrisil is both capable and willing to sterilise the planet of the human race. He turned the screen off. And that's the end of the presentation, he said dryly. The agenda says it's time for a tea break. We've already had one, haven't we? Ursula followed Oakley to the kitchen. He looked angry and stormed up to the sink and poured himself a glass of water. Are you all right, dear? Ursula asked. Not really, snapped Oakley. She is rather full of herself, isn't she? Ronnie, dear. Who else? And that bothers you? Bothers me? He rasped, then smiled. Good God, no, she's exactly what I need. It's Mackenzie that worries me. When do you expect Carruthers here? I'm going to say to arrive here. When do you expect Carruthers to arrive here? Oak shrugged. Next few days? I don't know. He frowned and put the glass back down on the counter. That man has a lot to answer for. Thankfully, your young lady makes up for it. We will be relying on her in the next few weeks, I fear. Ursula smiled. Yes, dear. I think you're right. I think you may be right. Right, there we go. I'm vaguely happy with that. The next chapter is a bit triggering, so it's, I think, well, let me tell you, I'll talk about the next chapter after I've run this one through Grammarly. So let's do that first. As a 14-year-old wants to read this, and I'm not sure it's appropriate. I'm going to send it to his mum first. But it's the stuff in the next chapter that I think makes it I don't know. It's so hard to call. I don't know. Anyway, let's not even think about that. Let's do the Grammarly work on this chapter first. Okay, let's just... Oh. Yeah, that's fair enough. Mackenzie, I can explain Marianne. No, not explaining common Marianne, so that's actually wrong. That's right there. Yeah, that's fine. No, that's speech. That stays as it is. That's how he speaks. Yep, happy with that. Actually, yes. Oh, yeah, Taser's actually a brand, isn't it? So... That's the way she speaks, so that's it. That's the same, that's staying. She must have. Oh yeah, I've got the words in the wrong order. Yeah, okay, I'll lose the actual on that occasion. No, I don't want a comma there. Oh, hello, extra people. That's weird. So I've actually got a notification that there's a raid in. Hello, thank you for joining me, Coffee Quills. Yeah, weirdly, anything you type isn't coming up on my screen today, and I don't know why. I mean, coming up on the stream. So I will just make an effort to read the comments so that people can see them if they're only looking at the picture. So Coffee Quills just said, "Wow, coffee." I'm assuming that's how you said it anyway. I'm just grammarizing my chapter to sign off, and then I'm going to do the next chapter. And Coffee Quills just waved. Right, but here on this point, no. That's fine. Yeah, okay. Sank, yeah, that's fair enough. Scott said, I'll be heading out to make dinner, but I hope the words are going well. They are, actually. I've been away for a week and I've been unable to stream, but I've got 9 chapters ready to sign off. I just need to do the final work, print it out because I do spot mistakes better on paper. So yes, so I want to get to the end of chapter 20 by the end of the month. There's a tiny chance I'm going to be able to do it by the end of the 18th, which means I can then get ahead of my self-imposed schedule, which is always a good thing. Always a great thing, says Coffee Quills. Yeah, definitely. Well, there's someone who wants to read it. There's a couple of people who want to read it, actually. So the quicker I can get it done, the quicker that someone can... I mean, this isn't the final draft by any means, but I think it will be at the point where people can read it for feedback, sort of beta reader type thing. And then hopefully I can get some feedback, make any changes I feel I need to make. I don't always agree with the feedback I get, but 9 times out of 10 it's good. Occasionally people say we need to change that and I'm like, nah. But most of the time I do act on the feedback. So yeah, I'm not one of these who, because I know a couple of writers who feel that all feedback is valid and therefore they have to obey all feedback, even when they contradict each other. And that's no. So you'll have one person who says you need to do this, and someone else go, no, you need to do totally the opposite. And I know someone who no longer with us, unfortunately, but he would try and please everybody, even if the feedback was contradictory, and that just doesn't work. Ronnie had said she had not seen them all, so she said she would join them. Yeah, all posts value. You all can decide the end result. Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm not knocking feedback, but I just I think you do need to be selective, because if somebody's feedback contradicts what you're trying to do, then possibly they haven't got what you were trying to do, or it could be that you haven't made it clear enough. So it might be the result of that feedback is actually I haven't made my point well enough, so I need to strengthen it. Maybe, I don't know. But no, I do enjoy that. I do enjoy that bit. I do enjoy getting the feedback back. Okay, thank you very much for raiding in, Coffee Quills. Much appreciated. Oh, you are lurking. Okay, cool. This is a very interesting one. So the sentence... Oh God, I love Grammarly. Ronnie was not sure if her urge to protect Mackenzie was because she felt sorry for him or that he was a Yakunda. Yakunda is what the trees call people who have good souls who are worthy of survival. Grammarly wants me to change the sentence to Ronnie was not sure if her urge to protect Mackenzie was because she felt sorry for him or that he was Ian Cunningham. Who the hell is Ian Cunningham? I'm going to have to Google him now. But, oh God, it's never... Oh, what? Just going to Google Ian Cunningham. Oh, he's apparently an American football executive. Oh, right. That's genius. Oh, I'm going to have to mention that in the podcast later. That's hilarious. Let me just copy and paste that into... I now have to have a character called Ian Cunningham in a future book. Right, we're dismissing that suggestion because it's a silly one. Sorry, this is the boring bit. I'm just doing it, running this through Grammarly. Once I've done this, I'm going to read the next chapter, which I'm going to have to put mention a trigger warning before I read it. But hang on. Okay, let's add an and. No, that's a statement, not a... Okay. Yep, I'll accept that. Yep, I'll accept that. I always put breath instead of breathe. Never mind, it's sorted now. What? Function what? What? Can't believe I missed that error. To create a list of schools we need to learn from society to function awards. Afterwards, I think that should say. Actually, yes, that's probably a better. Oh yeah, Google would need a capital G. Right, okay. Let's just download this. Okay, let's just open it, and then I can explain the next chapter and why it's a bit possibly triggering. I do need to check it is the next chapter before I give that warning, but right then. Oh, hello, Itanchi, how are you? Just signing off a chapter, and I'm about to dive into another one any second, in fact. Right, so that is awake still, of course. Yes. Can't remember which side you're on. Are you Chicago-y way? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it's what, 5 in the morning there? Wow. Right, so that is chapter 12 signed off. 4. Okay, so I'm just going to check chapter 13 is the one I think it is. print it off and then explain why it might be a bit triggering. Hang on. Yeah, it is this chapter. I thought it was. Right, so I'm just going to print it. And then give me a little explanation before I go into it. Considering breakfast, yeah. Yeah, it is almost time, isn't it? Yeah, you've got to wonder if now what you've got is more of an early morning than a late night. Right, I'm just going to print this chapter. And then I'm going to talk you through it before I start reading it. Right then. So, chapter 13. So the reason I'm going to just pop it on here for a moment. The reason I'm going to give a little warning before this is we find a little bit about the background of one of my main characters. So to give it a bit of context, the ambassadors that the trees create are literally grown inside a tree using DNA from real people that the trees have encountered over the years. And Mackenzie is one of those. He's 20 years old. Now, they have guardians, effectively. Carruthers was his, in the same way that Ursula is Ronnie's. And their job was to make sure that they grew up to be the person capable of doing the ambassador's job, that they had a proper nurturing environment and that they could be the people that the trees need them to be. Unfortunately, Carruthers had lost his wife. Now, Carruthers is an exceptionally old man. He's about 300 years old. The trees have been keeping him alive. They've slowed down his ageing so that he can, to enable consistency over this large project that they've set up over hundreds of years. And his function, as I say, was to make sure nothing bad happened to Mackenzie. However, he'd lost his wife and basically knew that the process that the tree would put him through to help him deal with it probably would have numbed the pain. But his reasoning was, but I loved her and I don't want the pain to be numbed. I want to deal with it myself. But he never has had to deal with anything himself because the trees have always smoothed out emotions and stuff when they've been particularly painful for him. So he isn't actually capable of doing that by himself. And as a result, he hit the bottle, he became an alcoholic, and he lied to the people back at Arbor Associates about what was happening with Mackenzie. So he never looked after Mackenzie. He never protected the lad as he was growing up. He never nurtured him to make him the person that would be a suitable ambassador. And unfortunately, some of the stuff that happened to Mackenzie along the way was quite horrific. And I don't go into detail in the chapter, but this is where we find out that basically his parents were drug addicts, and his mum owed an awful lot of money, and sometimes she would reduce the debt by having sex with her drug dealer. And when the debt got particularly bad, she allowed them to use her son as well. So effectively, he was abused as a 12-year-old. I say, but that's still a child, isn't it? So hello, I'm just explaining why the next bit's quite triggering. Sorry, Angel Faye is back. Yeah. So what's happened to Mackenzie when he was younger was horrific. And I don't include these details to be to try and I want I genuinely want the audience to empathise with the character and understand why he's so fucked up, basically. So that information, that's his background, that happened to him. As a result, he's never been able to maintain a relationship with another human being, especially a sexual relationship. And he's basically a screwed up mess. And it is Carruthers' fault, because Carruthers' entire function was to protect him, and he didn't. And so that all comes out in this chapter. It's not explicit or anything, horrible like that, but it upset me when I wrote it. It's not nice, but it kind of, that's the character's background. It's weird because I didn't decide those things that happened to him. I just sort of instinctively knew that they had, and for a while I thought about not including those details, but it absolutely does inform the character. So, right, having now warned you that this is not very nice, let's do the chapter. Okay, so chapter 13, Arrivals. The work imposed by Oakley on Ronnie and Mackenzie over the next few days was intense. Ronnie had not been entirely sure why Ursula had left Sherwood to join them at first. However, she soon became a pillar of emotional support for her, as well as the only link back to her former life. Mackenzie did not have that support, at least not from the source it was meant to come from. Ronnie found that she liked the unassuming boy, and Marianne was also very protective of him. He appreciated them both. After a week, Mackenzie finally became comfortable in his suite and started sleeping there, albeit on a sofa in the living room and not the bed. Ronnie still accompanied him. He so wanted to feel normal that, after a few days, he told Ronnie that he'd be okay on his own, but that first night he was so anxious that he wet himself. He was ashamed, but confided in Marianne, who changed the sheets and mattresses without a fuss, and never once made him feel foolish. It happened the following night as well, but on the third, he made it through. His confidence slowly increased. Ronnie was quick to privately castigate Oakley if he belittled Mackenzie at all, and Oakley could see that Mackenzie was learning the detailed recommendations that he was going to have to deliver to the minister in less than 2 weeks. A week into the training, Oakley announced that they were going to take a day trip to Carlisle, just over an hour away in the car. They visited Hadrian's Wall, they ate fish and chips and ice cream. It briefly felt as though they were a family on a day trip. The only activity related to work was when Oakley took them to a tailor and had them measured for the clothing they were going to wear to the presentations. Ronnie chose trousers rather than a dress, which annoyed him, whilst Mackenzie wanted his garb to be traditional. The kilt suited him, although Oakley did insist that the pattern was not his family tartan. Mackenzie argued until Oakley pointed out that it was not sensible to wear anything that linked him to a specific family or region. In the end, Mackenzie chose the Paisley Ancient tartan. I'm going to put pattern. Which is a real tartan. The Paisley Ancient tartan pattern, a combination of blues and greens with red, white and yellow stripes. He chose it because he liked the colours. They all enjoyed the break, including Oakley, who behaved like a slightly grumpy dad, which was precisely what anybody who saw the three of them together would have assumed that he was. They went to a pub for dinner. Mackenzie had a beer. Ronnie tried a single malt Scotch whisky at Mackenzie's insistence. She didn't like it, and to his horror, asked the barman to add some Diet Cola. You don't add cola to expensive single malt whiskies. Crap like Teachers, and blends, fine, but no, you don't add mixers to a single malt. They were home by 8:30, at which point Oakley told them that Lord Farnborough wanted to meet them and would be visiting the lodge the following day. Mackenzie met Ronnie for breakfast the next morning. It was becoming a bit of a tradition, and on this occasion the pair of them had decided they would cook to give Marianne the morning off. They failed. Whilst Ronnie and Mackenzie made breakfast, Marianne used the time to do some baking in the preparation kitchen. Oakley sat down with them, moaned that the sausages were not as well done as he liked, and then informed them of the schedule for the next few days. Ideally, we want you both to be able to make your presentations without notes, he said. Today you will be meeting Lord Farnborough. He is completely in the loop about how things are going. He knows that Mackenzie is your kunda and about his lack of support until the last few days. He's not here to catch either of you out, just to make sure that things are on track. He's checking me, not you. You don't seem worried, stated Ronnie. These eggs are a bit runny. Oakley murmured Oakley to himself. He looked up and then gave a rare and genuine smile which changed his craggy face completely. I'm not worried. I wouldn't have taken us out yesterday if I thought we were behind schedule. You are both doing really well. He looked at Ronnie. Now don't tell me a new one for what I'm about to say. I always knew that you would be fine. Mackenzie, on the other hand, was a bit of an unknown quantity. Not his fault, I hasten to add, but his attention to detail and effort to learn everything has both surprised and impressed me. If we had to change the plan and send you to visit your ministers separately, I think that would work. Mackenzie looked uncomfortable. Hypothetically, Mackenzie, hypothetically, continued Oakley hurriedly. I'm not changing anything now. It would be counterproductive. Personally, I think the fact that you know Ronnie will be there to back you up has boosted your confidence. I'm not going to do anything to change that. It's nice to see. Tomorrow we are going to do some role plays. I will play the Right Honourable Derek Cockerell Wright. Marianne is going to be Fiona McRae. Lord Farnborough will be staying here overnight and he will critique your performances. Nothing to worry about. He knows both ministers well and will brief myself and Marianne on how they are likely to react. It is purely to help you to make the scenarios as realistic as possible and to give you hints and tips. Remember that Lord Farnborough will attend the real meetings as well. He'll be with us on the plane as we fly up to Holyrood. I bet he won't be flying economy, muttered Ronnie. No, he won't be. Oakley pushed his breakfast plate away. Marianne appeared with Ursula, who had been teaching them some of her favourite recipes. Ronnie helped Mackenzie load the dishwasher. I'm nervous about tomorrow, I'm not going to lie, he said to her. Ronnie closed the door. You're fine. I don't think Oakley said what he just said to be nice. Mackenzie grimaced. I don't think he says anything just to be nice. I mean, he isn't very nice, is he? Ronnie shrugged. He has a difficult job to do. My guess is he was blamed for what happened on the day we met. He's under a lot of pressure. And tomorrow is his Ofsted inspection, joked Mackenzie. Yes, it is, said Oakley, appearing suddenly behind them. And as I said, I'm not worried. He put his mug into the dishwasher. Mackenzie, a word. Ursula was standing next to him. Her breakfast lay on the table in the snug, almost untouched. I'm going to the gym, said Ronnie. I'll see you at 10 for school. Aye. Oakley and Ursula led Mackenzie to the garden room. I've just had a phone call from Carruthers. He is out of his tree. Oakley grunted, then gave a mirthless laugh. Probably in both senses. He had avoided interfacing for such a long time his sense of, well, everything really, was way off. You don't know this, but both Ursula and Carruthers are hundreds of years old. It's not immortality or anything like that, but life can be quite lonely for them, watching people around them die of old age and hardly aging a day themselves. They are meant to periodically interface. Idrisil helps them to come to terms with things, to smooth over and even out their emotions, especially at times of loss. Ursula sat down on a long sofa. For us, going off the rails a little is not an uncommon thing. My husband died in the Great War, she said as Oakley and Mackenzie sat down. Hang on, the Great War? Interrupted Oakley. I always assumed he died in the 1940s. It was 1917, dear, replied Ursula wistfully. But my point is that I struggled for a while. I wanted to deal with grief my way. Luckily, it was not at a critical time. The Carruthers that you met was consumed with grief and loss. He is not the man you will meet tomorrow. He will now be focused on what we need to do. He is aware that he has let us down. She looked directly at Mackenzie. He is aware that he has let you down most of all, Mackenzie. By the time Idrisil drew you in for your first interface, he should have been a known and trusted person to you, a reassuring presence upon release, such as I was for Veronica. He cannot change what happened. He cannot change the things that happened to you. But I would ask that you understand that he is here for you now. He is you, remember? Mackenzie nodded. So does that mean I will live for hundreds of years as well? Ursula shook her head. You will have a normal lifespan. We were created as an insurance policy to make sure that if the trees had to get directly involved, the infrastructure is in place. Lord Farnborough is also an Auror, which is what Idrisil calls people like myself and Mr. Carruthers. But Lord Farnborough has no corresponding Veroandi, which is what they call you. Auror, Veroandi, as in Ursula and Veronica? Mackenzie inquired. That was my little joke, dear, smiled Ursula. I deliberately chose names that echoed the terms Idrisil had for us, both for myself and Ronnie. And dear Ronnie. Carruthers will arrive here later today, said Oakley. Please try and put what happened at Loch Lomond out of your mind as much as you can. He will try and make it up to you. Ursula knows him of old. Ursula smiled. He is a decent man. I would ask you to give him another chance. Mackenzie nodded. I'll try. You are Yakunda, said Ursula. I know you will. But I shouldn't be Yakunda, should I? No, said Oakley. It isn't your fault. That's also down to Carruthers, unfortunately. Your experiences have given you... I'm going to say your life experience, rather than just your experiences. Your life experience has... That's better. Your life experience has given you more empathy than is ideal for one of Idrisil's ambassadors, but you're trying very hard. I can see that. We all can, dear, added Ursula. I'm sorry, muttered Mackenzie. Don't be, said Oakley. You have Ronnie to support you, and she has enough edge for the both of you. Mackenzie left to go for a walk around the grounds. Oakley sat back and exhaled. He's doing better than I thought, but I'm still not certain. Every time Ronnie argues with me or has a go at me, inside I'm doing a mental cartwheel of joy. She has fire. Mackenzie needs that. She certainly doesn't take any shit from you. Oakley looked flabbergasted. I've never heard you swear before, he exclaimed. No. Oakley smiled. I have a question, Mrs. So-called Uror. In Norse mythology, Idrisil is the tree of life. According to that mythology, she has Norns, beings who rule the destiny of gods and men. Two of them are called Uror and Veroandi. Uror represents the past, Veroandi the present. There is a third Norn in their trilogy called Skuld, who represent destiny or the future. If you are Uror and Ronnie is Veroandi, where is Skuld? Are we going to meet more versions of you in the future? Well, that depends on whether Norse mythology is based on tales inherited from the trees or whether the trees just liked the tale and borrowed the terms. And which is it? Asked Oakley. Ursula raised her eyebrows and gave an enigmatic smile. Realising that he was not going to get an answer, Oakley grunted and left the room, and that's the first mention of the Skuld, who obviously do become quite important later on in the story. Just after 2:00, Oakley received a phone call. He walked into the office and called up a CCTV image of the gates. There was a large Bentley parked up in front of them. Satisfied, he entered a code and the gates opened. He watched as the car drove carefully through them. Once it was clear, he operated the controls again and the gates closed. The car drove slowly along the winding driveway. The rear right-hand window was open halfway, and smoke was drifting out of it. The car eventually came to a gentle halt at the front of Forest Lodge. The driver's door opened, and a tall, large man dressed in black with a peaked cap scurried out, walking to the rear door on the far side. He opened it, and a tall, well-built man in his mid-60s swung his legs out and stood up. The driver rushed to the boot of the car and pulled out 2 large suitcases. Oakley stepped from the front door of Forest Lodge and down the steps. Welcome to Forest Lodge, my lord. Farnborough had a large cigar in his right hand, which he brought up to his lips and took a long drag. He was wearing a slightly scruffy, baggy tweed suit with a double-breasted waistcoat made from the same material. Under all of that was a sky-blue buttoned shirt and a green tartan tie, and on top he wore a darker tweed hunting jacket with large pockets. There was ash from the cigar on his jacket, which he noticed and tried to brush off, succeeding only in spreading it around, further increasing his look of dishevelment. His hair was thinning and grey and somewhat curly. He had still the silver stubble around his face that was not quite a beard. Bill, please, he said, exhaling thick smoke at the same time. I assume that Forest Lodge is still a no-smoking establishment? Well, if I'm honest, I'm not bothered either way, replied Oakley, but I'm sure Veronica would have something to say about it. She has something to say about pretty much everything else. Farnborough took another drag. Firecracker, is she? She knows her mind, yes. She will tell you to smoke outside. Excellent, replied Farnborough. He turned to his driver. You may go. I will certainly not need you for the rest of the day. Make yourself available tomorrow, and I shall call you when I need you. He turned back to Oakley. Where is he staying? The Keswick Hotel, about 20 minutes' drive away, just the other side of Lake Thirlmere. Splendid, cried Farnborough, stubbing his cigar out on the sole of his shoe and throwing the stub to the ground. The driver returned to the car, having been dismissed, and started the engine, setting back off down the driveway. Farnborough walked up the steps, leaving his 2 cases on the gravel outside. Shaking his head to himself, Oakley picked up both and struggled up the steps after Lord Farnborough. Marianne closed the doors behind them as they entered. The others were all standing in the hallway, waiting. Hello, said Farnborough very loudly. I am the Right Honourable Lord William Farnborough, but you can call me Bill. You can all call me Bill. Oakley put the cases down and stepped forward to introduce everyone. This is Ursula, he said. Farnborough walked up to her and shook her head. Hello again, my dear, he said warmly. I hear your protégé is something special. Ronnie was next to Ursula in line. That would be me, Veronica Alice Arden. Call me Ronnie. Fuck me, they get younger, he said emphatically. He grabbed her hand, although it had not been offered, and he grabbed her hand, although it had not been offered, and shook it almost aggressively. Apparently you don't take any shit. Apparently not, Bill, she said, and mind your language. She gave him a bright smile. None of us particularly want or need to hear it. Well, that told me, he exclaimed. He moved on to Mackenzie. And you are? Oh, by the way, Lord Farnborough, in my head, is... Oh, what's the actor called? The older guy from Four Weddings and a Funeral, and then he also played... He also played Dickens in like a very early episode of The Return of Doctor Who. And it's going to come back to me. I'm going to have to Google him, I'm afraid. Sorry. Four Weddings and a Funeral. Simon Callow. So in my head, that is Lord Farnborough. A little bit older than that. I don't know when that picture was taken. He is a bit older now. Let me see if I can Google a better picture. Simon. So, if I can find a more recent picture. Something like... Oh. Well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, and come on. Friggin' hell. Just trying to get a picture up on the screen. Yeah. So that's an older him. Anyway, that's the actor. That's who I had in my head. I don't always cast my characters in my head, but he absolutely was cast. And you want Mackenzie Stewart, my lord? The boy said nervously. That's more like it. Proper respect. He walked across to Mackenzie and looked him up and down. How's it going, lad? Mackenzie gave a nervous grin. Hard work, but I think it's going okay. Farnborough smiled and slapped him hard on the chest. I'm told you're doing very well, considering. He walked over to Marianne, who was last in the line. Hello again, my dear. Have you decided what you are yet? I'm still non-binary, if that's what you mean, said Marianne, with as neutral a tone as they could muster. Of course you are, boomed Farnborough. He turned to Oakley and nodded towards Marianne. Does he still do a fine spread? Oakley caught Marianne's eye. They do, he said. Are you in need of refreshment? Something to eat, yes, and a brandy would be extremely pleasant. Oakley took Farnborough towards the double doors that led to the kitchen. Which room can I smoke in? The garden, Ronnie called after him. Ha! Mr. Oakley said you'd say that, cried Farnborough noisily as he stomped into the kitchen. Ronnie rolled her eyes. I really don't like him. He's an arse. Ursula made to follow them into the kitchen. He is, dear. However, he's a very well-connected one, and his heart is in the right place. Marianne was rooted to the spot. Mackenzie was rooted to the spot. Are you okay? Ronnie asked. Mackenzie shivered. I'm used to our little bubble. It's weird having someone new here. And we get to see Mr. Carruthers later as well, said Ursula. Mackenzie hung back for a few moments as the others moved into the kitchen. He shook his head. He was not looking forward to that meeting at all. Marion had set up the buffet on the large dining table in the kitchen rather than the cosy comfort of the snug, just as they had the night Ronnie arrived. Farnborough sat down without ceremony and started helping himself to food. Oakley ran down the stairs to the bar in the cinema room, took a bottle of cognac from the cabinet, as well as an appropriate glass, then returned to the kitchen. He set the glass down in front of Farnborough, who saw the bottle in his hand and grabbed it from him. He tried to read the label, but realised that he was not wearing his glasses. He searched his pockets until Ronnie pointed out they were on a lanyard around his neck. Thanking her, he slipped them on and peered at the bottle Oakley had handed to him. Delors Bass Armagnac l'Authentique, he read. I've heard good things, but I've never had the pleasure. He glanced at the label again. Almost 46%. I'd better be modest then. He immediately poured himself a generous helping and held the glass in his hand, gently swirling it as he forced food into his mouth with the other. When does Carruthers get here? He asked, spitting food out as he spoke with his mouth full. Any time now, said Oakley, sitting down and helping himself to a slice of pizza. We were not sure he would get here first. So the old bugger might have thought the spread was in his honour. He looked at Marianne and smirked. Sorry, old boy. Didn't mean anything by using the word bugger. No offence. Marianne, forced a smile, stood up and moved across to the fridge to collect some more food. Mackenzie went with them. Sorry about him, he whispered. I think he said that on purpose. I'm sure he did, said Marianne with a grimace. Ursula makes mistakes because she doesn't get it, but she is trying, bless her. He says things because he does get it, but thinks he's being funny. Marianne handed Mackenzie a couple more full plates, took 2 more for themselves, and used their shoulder to nudge the fridge door closed. Farnborough took his first sip of the cognac and gave a pleased smile. That was not bad at all, he said, swirling it his hand again. Needs to get a little warmer, but not bad. The phone in Oakley's pocket buzzed. Oakley pressed the green button, then held it to his ear. Hello, yes, I can let you in. He flicked over to an app on the phone, showing a live video image of the gate. He pressed another button, and it swung open. That's Mr. Carruthers. He would like to talk to you in the drawing room, Mackenzie. Mackenzie looked confused. The drawing room? The big room we don't use often, other side of the hall. Oh, the living room, if you like. Oakley pointed to the doors that led to the room. Come on. Sorry, if you like. Oakley pointed to the doors that led to the hall. Come on. This is my most cast scene, actually, because Oakley is an actor called Roger Allam, and Carruthers is Peter Capaldi. And technically, Mackenzie is a 20-year-old Peter Capaldi. Anyway. The big room we don't often use, the other side of the hall. The living room, if you like. Oakley pointed to the doors that led to the hall. Come on. Mackenzie looked nervous. By myself. He wants to talk to just you, yes. Mackenzie stood and walked through the double doors to the hall. He glanced back towards Ronnie and Marianne, but they were deep in conversation and did not notice. Mackenzie followed Oakley across the giant hallway and through the double doors next to the piano. He had hardly set foot in this room. He'd just poked his head through when Ronnie had given him the tour. There was a large fireplace on the same side as the double doors. There were 2 enormous 3-seater sofas facing each other with a large coffee table in the middle. Mackenzie sat on the one closest to the rear exit, the fireplace on his right. The room was silent. He waited for a few minutes, and then Marianne came in with a tray containing tea. He waited for a few minutes, and then Marianne came in with a tray containing tea. They took one look at Mackenzie, his pale face and terrified look, set the tray down the coffee table, and sat down next to him, putting her assuring arm around his shoulders. Carruthers is in the hall. He'll be in here a moment. Mackenzie was obviously forcing back a tear. What does he want? My guess is he wants to apologise to you in private. You will barely recognise him when he comes in. Marianne hugged him gently, then kissed his forehead. Mackenzie smiled. Marianne squeezed his shoulders again and stood up. If it gets too much for you, I'll be outside. Just come out or call me. Thanks, said Mackenzie miserably. He watched them leave. A few moments later, the double doors opened and a man walked in. It took Mackenzie a moment to realise that it was Carruthers. He had been to a barber since he last saw him and shaved. His hair was now neat rather than unkempt, and he was wearing a pair of glasses. His clothing was immaculate, a grey suit with a white shirt and green tie. There was still a hint of a bump on his forehead, Mackenzie noticed with embarrassment. Carruthers gave Mackenzie a warm smile and sat down on the sofa opposite him. There were a few moments of silence. Mackenzie did not know what to say, and he sure as hell wasn't going to make it easy for the old man by starting the conversation. Mackenzie, said Carruthers. He had a softer accent now, with only a slight hint of Glaswegian. I'm sorry. I have let you down badly, and I've endangered the project. You and Ronnie are the reason that we're all here now. I don't know how much you know, but I've lived for a very long time. Ursula explained, interrupted Mackenzie. She said that interfacing with the trees regularly helps you to come to terms without living everyone. That's about the size of it, said Carruthers. My wife died 10 years ago. We'd been married for 70. She looked a lot older than me when she died, but she was everything to me. I entered a depression that periodic interfacing was designed specifically to prevent. I just wanted to handle it myself rather than have my feelings softened. I should not have done that. The longer I left it, the more reluctant I was to ask for help. Foolishly, I told Lord Farnborough that everything was okay and that I was monitoring you. The truth is, your life should have been a lot easier than it was. Not all of it was my fault, but a substantial part of it was. Could you have stopped me being adopted by the Stuarts? Mackenzie asked. No, said Carruthers, but if I'd done my job properly, I would have seen what was happening and put a stop to it before it got really bad. He leaned over and rested his hand on Mackenzie's shoulder. I'm truly sorry, son. It's my fault you're quite right for the role you were... I'm just going to have to reword that because that's just slightly bollocks. Hang on. It's my fault you're not right for the role you were born for to carry out. That's probably a better way of putting that. I'm truly sorry, son. It's my fault you're not right for the role that you were born to carry out. Mackenzie blinked back some tears. The truth is, lad, you are a nicer person for it. You would not have ended up as a Yakunda if you'd been shaped properly. Your experiences have made you a more empathetic person than we either need or want you to be. But you're a smart kid. Mr. Oakley is very pleased with your progress. You'll be able to do what you need to despite it being neglected by this old fool. He gestured towards himself as he said this. Mackenzie shook his head. I sometimes wake up at night and I can't work out if this is all a very vivid dream or a nightmare. This could be the end of the world as we know it. There's no could be about it, son. Either the governments comply and everything changes, or they don't, and everything changes even more substantially. At least you will survive whatever happens. And if it is the worst case scenario. Right, that's a massive repetition, so I just need to change that. Let's just read that. There's no could be about it, son. Either governments comply and everything changes, or they won't, or they don't, and everything changes even more substantially. Personally, I believe that will be the outcome. So you don't think Ronnie and I will persuade the ministers to make the necessary changes? Carruthers shook his head. I don't, no. That's not a reflection of either of you, by the way. I just think globally the human race is too used to the way things are and will resist such radical changes. He paused. Is there anything you want to ask me? There is a question I want to ask, said Mackenzie. He'd managed to keep his face neutral and not give away what he was feeling. He felt a rush of blood to his head. When would you have found out my stepmother was a junkie? Before she married your father, considered Carruthers. We would have made sure they never married. How? We are friends in high places. She would have been arrested or jailed. Right, so the times I had to listen to the drug dealer rape her when she could not pay him, that wouldn't have happened. Mackenzie's face had hardened into an expression of anger. Christ, no, said Carruthers as he dropped his eyes, unable to meet Mackenzie's intense gaze. I'm sorry. Mackenzie shook his head and hesitated. He was not sure if now was the best time to say what he was about to say. It was something he'd never told anybody. He'd promised himself that, if he were ever to vocalise it, it would be someone he deeply trusted. The old fool before him was certainly not that, but instinct told him it had to be said. Carruthers had to understand exactly how his lack of action had impacted upon him. Mackenzie licked his lips nervously, then stood and walked forward so he was less than a foot from Carruthers, staring directly into his eyes. I'm guessing that I wouldn't have been raped by her dealer's friend either, to pay off one of her debts, when I was 13. Carruthers' eyes widened and he leaned backwards into the sofa involuntarily. Oh my God. Aye, said Mackenzie. Are you saying that if you'd done your job properly, that wouldn't have happened to me? Carruthers was struggling to hide his emotion. I don't know what to say. Sorry will never be enough. But I truly am. It's too fucking late for that. Mackenzie sat down and tears started to roll down his cheeks. 2 years ago I met this beautiful girl. She didn't care that I was poor and crap money and lived in a bedsit. She liked me. It was lovely and it was going so well. Right up until she tried to touch me. I freaked out and I never fucking saw her again. I'm 20 and I just can't have a normal adult relationship because the moment anything might be about to happen, the vivid memories of those nights flood back into my mind. Carruthers took some deep breaths. Perhaps Idril could interface with you and help smooth away that pain. No, and do you know why? Because it's part of who I am now. Also, I'm not going to make your life that fucking easy. I have to live with what you did or rather didn't do. And now so do you. Mackenzie leapt out of his chair so forcefully that he almost knocked over the coffee table. As it was, the empty teacups flew onto the floor and smashed. He ran out of the drawing room via the rear doors and almost sent Marianne flying. Mackenzie, they called. Are you all right? No, he sobbed. He stopped and sat on the bottom step, covering his head with his hands. Everything should have been so different. It's all his fault. Mackenzie was crying uncontrollably. Marianne sat on the step next to him and put their arms around his shoulders. Mackenzie flinched and even considered jumping away from the touch. But the reassurance he got from it was outweighed by the horrible feelings the intimacy reignited. Does that make sense? Mackenzie flinched and even considered jumping away from the touch, but the reassurance he got from it Yeah, that is slightly worded wrongly, sorry. But the reassurance you got from it outweighed the horrible feelings the intimacy reignited. Just right. I just told something I would never told anyone. I was working my way up to telling someone. Sorry. I just told him something I've never told anyone. Let's just put a contraction in there because that would be how I would speak. I've just told him something I've never told anyone. I was working up to saying something to someone at some point, someone I trust, but I blurted out in there just to hurt him. I'm not a yakunder, I'm just an arsehole. Marion squeezed his shoulder gently. You're not an arsehole, you're amazing. They looked over to the kitchen where Ronnie and the others were. In some ways, what you've done over the last 2 weeks or so is even more impressive than what Ronnie has. It all comes naturally to her and it doesn't to you. You're doing just as well as she is. You're doing great. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. Mackenzie peered up at them. It's all so new. I'm one of the few people that know the world's biggest secret. We could be looking at the end of everything. Sometimes I think I can handle it and other times I'm certain I can't. I can do what they need me to do. I can learn stuff and present it to some bigwig in the government, but the rest, I'm not sure. In 2 years, I might have to deliver a message that says, you have failed, you're all going to die. I'm not strong enough for that. So Marianne dug a pack of tissues from their pocket and handed them to him. Mackenzie took them, dried his eyes and blew his nose noisily. Do you trust me, Mackenzie? Marianne asked. Aye, he replied. So, if you ever want to say what you told Carruthers again, but in the way you originally wanted to someone you trust, consider me. I will never judge you or betray you. You know why? No, because I know you would never judge me. I'm not sure who or what I am. I figure I have long enough left in my life to work it out, so it doesn't matter if when I do it's tomorrow, next year, or 50 years from now. You have accepted me more completely than anyone I've ever met. Do I feel like a boy? No. Do I feel like a girl? No, I'm neither. Do you care about that? You know I don't. Precisely. You are wonderful. I wish there were more people in the world like you. No pressure, sweetheart, but if by listening I can help you, I really want to listen, Mackenzie. Thank you. A moment later, Carruthers left the drawing room via the furthest doors. He must have been aware of Mackenzie and Marianne on the stairs, but he walked straight past into the kitchen. I'm going to my room, said Mackenzie, and stood up, starting to walk up the stairs. Call me if you need anything, said Marianne. Can I have a single malt? Double? No ice? I'll bring it right up. Again, that should be... Oh, just the whole of that moment. It kind of, yeah. It's very emotional, that. But I totally believe in those characters, and I think, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to shut up because it is what it is. The rest of the plans for the day went awry. Marianne had discovered Carruthers hovering in the kitchen. He had also asked for scotch. Marianne took one up the 2 flights of steps to Mackenzie, and he downed it in one, but did not ask for another. Everyone acknowledged, even Lord Farnborough, that today was not the day to put Mackenzie under any more pressure. Carruthers did not reveal what Mackenzie had said, but was so chastened by it that everyone knew it must be something bad. I'm going to say terrible, rather than bad. Carruthers suggested that Mackenzie was excused from the planned activity for the day, so in the end it was just Ronnie that exhibited knowledge to Farnborough and Oakley. Once she'd been through both the directives and specific suggestions on how to achieve them in England and Scotland, Farnborough sent her away, saying that if the deadline was tomorrow, he would not be worried. Farnborough demanded to have a cigar once he let Ronnie go, and in the warm, so Oakley led him to the snug. Lord Farnborough offered one to Oakley, who declined. They sent Marianne for coffee. I have made a decision, he said slowly. We don't need Mackenzie. Farnborough took a long drag of his cigar, then exhaled. The smoke was heavy and pungent. Veronica can easily deliver both sets of directives, confidently and persuasively. You must stand him down. Oakley looked uncertain. Look, he's not as good as her, but he's really thrown himself into this. He knows his stuff as well as she does. He's just not as confident. We still have almost 2 weeks. Farnborough shook his head. I don't see the point. Marianne arrived with a pot of coffee and some mugs. Both men stopped talking when they entered the snug. A fact they picked up on. Is everything okay? They asked. There was a long pause. In the end, Oakley spoke. We have some decisions to make. Marianne looked at him straight in the eyes. Do not undermine Mackenzie. Their jawline was firm. They set a plate of cookies down on the table, their eyes never leaving Oakley's, before turning on their heel and walking away. They know, said Oakley uncomfortably, and they're right. Nonsense! Oakley was unusually animated as he spoke. "I can't stand him down. You should have abandoned the idea of using him as soon as you realised he was not going to be ready, which was well before I became involved." Farnborough's face became stern. "You can't wriggle out of this. You've been here for, what, 4 years now?" Oh, hang on. Oh, yeah, hello, mate. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, buddy. Cheers.
Ah, the mail. Well, post. It's post in this country. Right. I'm going to finish this chapter before opening it, but I do want to open it. Haha. Right. Oakley was unusually animated. He spoke. "I can't stand him down. You should have abandoned the idea of using him as soon as you realised he was not going to be ready, which was well before I became involved." Farnborough's face became stern. "You can't wriggle out of this. You've been here for, what, 4 years now? It's as much your fault as anyone else's." "I don't accept that," stated Oakley. "He was 16 when I was employed by our associates. The damage was already done. I undertook the review that you wanted. I got him off the streets and into accommodation. I made sure he got a job, and I tried to pin down Crothers and work out what to do next, but the guy is elusive. I met him once and he told me everything was under control. I knew it was a lie and asked for him to be replaced, which I refused. Rightly. It would have been a waste of resource." Farnborough suddenly seemed more serious and imposing than he had done before. My job was, not is. My job was to look after Ronnie, not Mackenzie. You asked me, as a favour, to report back what was happening with him, which I did. You should have done more. You should have made more of an effort to change my mind." Oakley's face contorted his anger. "Look, I tried. Look, we have Ronnie. Hang on, I just need to... Oakley's face contorted with anger. "I tried. Look, we have Ronnie, and she can deliver everything we need for both of them." Farnborough inclined his head. "That is true." I'm going to change that to... "So you agree with me?" "No. I will not abandon Mackenzie. He's worked so hard. He realises how important all of this is, and he understands the role he must play. I can't say, 'Yeah, you were born to do this. It's literally your destiny, but you're shit, so fuck off back to your school, little bezit.' I'm going to reread that. But I will not abandon Mackenzie. He has worked so hard. He realises how important all of this is, and he understands the role he must play. I can't say, 'Yes, you were born to do this. This is literally your destiny, but you're shit, so fuck off back to your squalid little bezit up in the Highlands.' We have total responsibility for his well-being here. And if we send him on his way, what actual impact will his loss have on the project? Absolutely none," declared Farnborough. "Everyone thinks he's dead. He vanished without a trace months ago. That is not a coincidence. That is all part of the design. It gives us options." Oakley scoffed. "So we get rid of him? That's monstrous. What the hell is the point of saving the human race if this is what we've become?" Farnborough put his cigar down on the plate he'd been using as an ashtray. No person here is more important than the objectives. Not one. "When was the last time you interfaced?" sneered Oakley. "You've lost perspective if you think I'm going to allow one hair on that boy's head to be damaged." Farnborough was silent for a moment. "All right, Oakley, you have said your piece. On your head be it, and I mean that literally." Again, italicised literally. Oakley nodded. Farnborough stood up, glared at him, and then walked slowly away. Dinner that evening was tense. Everyone sensed that the atmosphere had changed. Mackenzie avoided the others for the rest of the day and ate upstairs. Marianne took a tray up for him, but when they went to collect it an hour later, it had hardly been touched. Mackenzie was sitting on his sofa reading his directives, learning all the detail he could. Marianne tried to chat with him, but he did not engage. Carruthers realised that if Mackenzie was going to be productive over the next couple of weeks, it was more likely to happen if he was not there. He apologised to everyone and reluctantly left Forest Lodge after dinner. Later that evening, Ronnie tried to go and talk to Mackenzie, but he told her that he was not in the mood for company. She tried to hug him as she left the room, but he shrank back and would not let her. She went to bed in her luxurious suite and could not sleep. Nobody slept well that night. Oakley knew that Farnborough would go as far as killing Mackenzie if he felt he was of no use. No, worse than that, Farnborough would expect Oakley to do it. That would not happen, Oakley thought to himself, under any circumstances. Marion lay in their bed thinking about Mackenzie and how upset he was and wishing they could do something to make him feel better. Even Lord Farnborough struggled to sleep. He woke up a couple of times and smoked his malodorous cigars out of the open bedroom window, hoping the room did not smell afterwards. His responsibility was simple: to get the directives delivered and ensure the government either obeyed them or understood the consequences if they did not. Mackenzie was an inconvenience, and a rather pathetic one at that. Farnborough also knew that Oakley would be almost impossible to replace at this stage. It was probably the only thing keeping Mackenzie alive. Mackenzie had managed to sleep in the bed rather than on the sofa for the previous couple of nights, and when he finally went to bed he did his best to stick to his new routine and not let the events of the day impact on his progress. He could not get the conversation with Carruthers out of his mind, and it took him a long time to get to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, the sheets around him were soaked. I'm just going to read the last paragraph again to make sure it makes sense. Mackenzie had managed to sleep in the bed rather than on the sofa for the previous couple of nights, and when he finally went to bed he did his best to stick to his new routine and not let the events of the day impact on his progress. He could not get the conversation with Carruthers out of his mind, and it took him a long time to get to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, the sheets around him were soaked. There we go. Right, sorry, there was some quite, close to the knuckle stuff in there, I think, but it's important for the character. Thing is, whenever something unpleasant happens in something I write, I always worry that, and it's stupid, isn't it? Because like writers write stories, and not all stories have nice things happening in them, and I do worry that because something bad's happened to a character, that makes me a bad person for thinking it up, and that's stupid because like nobody would write anything if they thought if they thought that, I guess. Right, let me just export that. I'm nearly done for this session. I'm just going to run that one through Grammarly. I've just need to convert it to a Word file. Okay, so that's done. Let's run that in. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to lose them really. Actually, no, I'm going to accept that recommendation, so let's do that. How many people are with me still? Oh, a few of you. I'm going to finish editing this, then I'm going to open my package, and then I'm going to stop, and I'll come back later to do some more. No. No, sorry, I'm not going to delete that. I want that there. No, the pairs of doors have established that, so that's correct. That's fine. There we go. Right. So there is the edited chapter. What? Hang on, hang on, hang on. What does it need? What's it saying? Oh. Good. Right. Paste it all in. Right then. Right, so there we go. That's another couple of chapters signed off. If the next chapter's really short, but I don't really do this isn't really short chapters at this point in the book. Let's just have a look. Oh, it is quite a short one. It is quite a short one. I'm sort of tempted to do the next chapter because it's quite a short one. It's a, yeah. Oh, please drop into the right place, you silly file. Oh, for God's sake, why is this doing this today of all days? Come on. What, you stupid bloody computer, come on. Normally it just lets me drag and drop anywhere, but it's playing silly buggers today. Oh, that's in the right place now. Right, so let's just print chapter 14. Because it's only, I think, 9 pages, yeah. So I will do this one now. And then I shall stop. But that's good. So let's just print that. Whilst it's printing, I'm going to open me stuff. So, one of these is going to be a Big Finish Productions audio CD. I think it's a War Doctor set. Now, the War Doctor was originally played by John Hurt, and they've got someone who really sounds like him acting in the part, called Jonathan Carlin, playing that Doctor. Is it this? There we go. The War Doctor Fallen Heroes. Some of these are quite good, some of them less so. But the thing I'm really excited about, I will rip that and listen to it later. Well, I won't listen to it later, but I'll rip it onto my iTunes. This, I do like my vinyl, and this is an old album that was released as a, I think it might have been a limited edition for Record Store Day this year, but it didn't, obviously it didn't sell out. So what I have here should be Reputation, by the album by Dusty Springfield. Now, the reason I like this is because it's actually a lot of the tracks on it are written and produced by Pet Shop Boys, and I'm a huge Pet Shop Boys fan. So so they did a couple of songs with her. So there's a famous song, What Have I Done to Deserve This, which was a duet between them and her. And they enjoyed working with her so much, they did some other stuff. And they were actually asked to write the theme. Do you have anywhere to play it? Yes, I have a record player. Yeah, they were asked to provide a theme tune for a movie, and the movie was all about the scandal in the 1960s with a government minister called Profumo. And I can't remember what the film was called, but it was meant to be very good. I have a funny feeling, who was in it? Profumo movie. No, let me just Google it. It's called Scandal, and who's in it? John Hurt. I thought John Hurt was in it, which is interesting because John Hurt played the War Doctor before he died. Anyway, so the movie is all about the Profumo scandal because he was sleeping with a prostitute who turned out to be a Russian spy and stuff like that. And they did a song called In Private, which was judged to be too poppy. To be the theme tune for the movie, and then they did another song called, I think it was called Scandal. Was it just called? No, Nothing Has Been Proved. It's a really good song, and Pet Shop Boys wrote and produced it, and it was performed by Dusty Springfield, and it was used as the theme for the movie. I don't think I've seen Scandal. I might actually have to watch it. It's supposed to be a good movie. But as I say, the fact that Pet Shop Boys did the theme tune for it. So both In Private and Nothing Has Been Proved are on this album. So roughly half the album is written and produced by Pet Shop Boys, and the others are produced by other people. It is a really good album. I do like it. And I think, if I remember rightly, Oh yeah, some of the lyrics to Nothing's Been Proved is Mandy's in the paper because she tried to go to Spain. She'll soon be in the dock and in the papers once again. Vicky's got a story about a mirror and the cane. It may be false, it may be true, but nothing has been proved. In the house of resignation, guilty faces everyone. Christine's fallen out with Lucky. Johnny's got a gun. Please please me's number one. In the news, a suicide note. In the court, an empty space. Even Mandy's looking worried. Christine's pale and drawn. Please, please, me's number one. It's a really good song. Yeah. Oh, it is. It's on pink vinyl as well. Excellent. So I shall, once I've finished this stream, I'm going to listen to that. I haven't listened to the album in ages. I've had it on CD for a long time. I think it came out in 80 or 90. Original copyright 1989, so it isn't a new album, it's 36 years old. But yeah, anyway, I shall think about that in a moment. Right, let me just run upstairs, get chapter, whatever the next one is. We'll get that one signed off, hopefully, and then I'm going to go and listen to my album. It's a scandal. Such a scandal. Sorry, I'm going to be thinking about that song for the next... until I get this signed off. Right, chapter 14. Victoria Tower Gardens. Now, this is one of the few chapters that... it's the first chapter not to feature Ronnie, possibly. At all. Yeah, anyway. Chapter 14. Victoria Tower Gardens. 1 week before the presentations, oh, hang on, let me get back onto that screen. 1 week before the presentations, Lord Farnborough was at the Palace of Westminster. He did not usually attend many debates unless they had an environmental theme that was directly linked to Idrisil's directives, but today he had some groundwork to lay. Instead of being driven, he'd caught the tube, and rather than use the main entrance, he'd walked to the southern end of the building, entering the estate at the door next to Blackrod's garden. Rather than go straight inside, he turned right into the garden, through that, and into Victoria Tower Gardens. His apparel was much smarter than him when he attended Forest Lodge. He had been slightly ruffled by the suggestion from Oakley that he was not as sharp as he ought to be, and had briefly interfaced with Idrisil. He was never going to admit it to Oakley, but it had been a while. It was not his favourite activity, especially in the winter, but it had helped him to clear things in his head and prioritise. His suit was still tweed, but it was no longer covered in ash. It was a new one that was a better fit. His hair had been freshly cut and tidied, and he was clean-shaven. His hunting jacket was immaculate, and he walked with a stick, which was purely for show. Victoria Tower Gardens was a large public park that stretched from the edge of Blackrod's garden, which was at the House of Lord ends of the palace, and continued south. It was V-shaped, narrowing slowly as it got further away from Westminster. There was a thick line of trees on each side of the garden, which met about 250 metres from the exterior wall of the palace. On the left-hand side, beyond the trees, was the River Thames, and on the right was Abingdon Street. The park was far more open than Farnborough would have liked. The thing he needed to do ideally required more privacy, but he had little choice. The Right Honourable Derek Cockerell Wright was here for most of the day, so today would be the perfect opportunity to help him understand the significance of the visit he was going to get from Veronica Arden the following week. The minister spent more time at his department than here at the palace, and in addition to the offices of the Department of Environment, Food and Royal Affairs, which were close to Westminster, he also worked out of private offices that were near St James's Park. For what Lord Farnborough needed to do, this park was better, even if it meant closing it down for a while. Shutting a public space, even temporarily, was going to be noticed and commented upon, but emptying Victoria Tower Gardens for the afternoon would attract much less attention than St James's Park. Farnborough stood at the threshold and looked down at the point where the garden tapered away to nothing. There was a very large oak tree on the Thames side of the garden, which he walked slowly up to. The space was not yet closed, and there were a handful of people milling about, so once he'd reached the tree, he had to wait a few minutes until he was sure that there was nobody close enough to see what he was doing. He stood before the great oak, and looking around him again to make sure that nobody was nearby, put his hand out and touched the bark. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the bark beneath his fingers raised around his fingers and slowly covered his hand. He only had one word to communicate, which was now. The tree gave him the signal back to tell him that it understood, which felt rather like a pin pricking him in the back of his mind. It would slowly communicate with all of the other trees in the park. By the time he was ready to make his demonstration to the minister, all of the trees in Victoria Tower Gardens would know what they would need, would know what they needed to do, would know what they would need to do. Let's just change that. Might need to do. There we go, that's a better way of putting it. Even as he took his hand away, briefly leaving an impression of it on the bark, he knew that this tree would be sending prepared instructions to all of the other trees via a network of thin fungal threads. Farnborough had been amused when the world had discovered the existence of these fungal networks several years ago, and had chuckled to himself when some scientists speculated the tree used it as a rudimentary communications network, if only they knew the full scale of it. It was possible to think of Yggdrasil as the soul of planet Earth. She had built her networks across the world millions of years ago. Billions, I think, is probably a better way of saying that. Billions of years ago. Along the seabeds and across rocks, under ice and over mountains. Let's lose the. Someone in a news article somewhere compared it to the fibre optic broadband network that humanity was covering the planet with. But the truth was that it was far more wide-reaching and more complex than humanity would ever truly understand. Farnborough pulled a hip flask from his pocket and poured some of the contents over his sap-covered hand. He took a handkerchief from another pocket and scrubbed at it until every trace of the sap had gone. He glanced around him. People were still walking about the garden. In the next 2 hours, a military exercise would close it off to everyone for the afternoon. Smiling to himself, Farnborough pocketed his flask and handkerchief and, with a jaunty whistle, headed to Blackrod's garden. Farnborough spent the next couple of hours in one of the bars inside the palace. He knew that Cockerel Wright was a creature of habit, and at some point today he would turn up and have a snack and something to drink. In the meantime, Farnborough ordered a Remy Martin, which he consumed slowly, swirling the glass in his hand and wishing that the Westminster smoking room still lived up to its name. To keep himself busy, he had some reports to read and signed off, so he sat poring over them, a red biro in one hand, which he occasionally used to write a question or underline something. At midday, the Secretary of State for the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, the Right Honourable Derek Cockerell Wright, entered the room. Sir Oliver Vaughan, his Civil Service Permanent Secretary, came in with him and declined his offer of a drink. "I shall get back to Marsham Street," Vaughan said as Cockerell Wright scanned the room, having already ordered a glass of wine from the bar. He saw Farnborough sitting at a table that gave him a good view of the entire room and walked over to him. "I shall be joining my Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State," called Cockerell Wright to Vaughan, gesturing towards Farnborough. "As you leave, can you please send a Remy Martin over the table for us?" Vaughan gave a slightly vexed look as he made to leave the room, but did as he was asked. "Minister," said Farnborough as the tall man sat down in the chair next to him. Cockerell Wright was wearing thick glasses and had his dark thinning hair, with a hint of grey, swept back over his head. He took off his jacket and, beckoning to a hovering member of staff, sat down and handed the jacket to him. Cockerell Wright was carrying just one item with him, his red dispatch box, which he placed on the table. "Bill," acknowledged Cockerell Wright as he sat down. "I half expected to see you here." Farnborough smiled and pushed all of the papers that he had spread over the table into one neat pile. "I was lying in wait, Derek." A few moments later, a waiter came over and placed a glass of wine before Cockerell Wright and a Remy Martin in front of Farnborough, who smiled. Oh, should do the other side of that page. Great timing, I was ready for another. Cockerell Wright was going to open his dispatch box and pull out some work, but thought better of it and instead checked that it was locked and set it down on the floor. "How's things?" asked Farnborough. "Right at this moment, it's a sodding nightmare," said Cockerell Wright vehemently. "The Peahem has asked at me at the last bloody moment to completely reword the Clean Air Bill. She wants the same content, but wants the actual wording to be less, and I quote, incendiary. Bear in mind that the wording comes from my science advisors and was chosen because it was supposed to be scientifically accurate so as not to be open to different interpretations by different readers. She wants the whole thing made more woolly so it's harder to pin anyone down in case we don't achieve the results." Cockerell Wright took off his glasses and wiped his hands across his eyes. "It's a bloody stitch-up. You know what?" He waved urgently at the waiter. "Oi, you! Another one of those, please." He pointed to the Remy Martin in Farnborough's hand. "So not a good day, then," said Farnborough. "I was busy before this," snarled Cockerell Wright. "Then I'm afraid, Derek, that I'm not going to make your day any easier. It's to do with your meeting with a representative from Arbor Associates next week. Next week is the key word in that sentence, said Cockerell Wright grumpily. I won't have time to think about it before then. There is something I must show you before you see her, said Farnborough. Today. If not now, in the next hour. Cockerell Wright waved him away. I don't have time today, Bill. It's not far. We just need to walk over to Victoria Tower Gardens. You'll have a job, old chap. It's been closed off. Some military training exercise thing. There are a handful of people going mad about it outside, moaning about civil liberties and all that. Farnborough looked straight at Cockerell Wright and took a sip of his cognac. I know. Who do you think arranged it? Cockerell Wright looked taken aback. Whatever it is, they're taking it seriously. They've even closed off the stretch of the Thames that runs past the garden. Boats have to navigate on the other side of the river. And this is down to you say? Farnborough smiled. Yes. OK then, I have to say I'm intrigued. I thought you would be. I would have insisted you come out there anyway, but your curiosity certainly makes things easier. How does it? Sneered Cockerell Wright. You would have found a way to force a cabinet minister to go out for a stroll with you even if he didn't want to. I would, affirmed Farnborough, but how nice for both of us that I didn't have to. Cockerell Wright's Remy Martin was delivered to the table, and rather than warming in his hand, the minister gulped it back in one. Farnborough shook his head. How much do you have in your diary after the meeting with my representative? Farnborough asked eventually. It is full as usual, said Cockerell Wright, taking a sip from his wine. Just a piece of friendly advice, said Farnborough. You might do well to clear your diary for the rest of that day. I couldn't if I wanted to, stated Cockerell Wright. Oh, but you will have to, Minister, said Farnborough. What you're going to hear next week is going to change everything. I think perhaps what I'm about to show you will help to convince you that. Will help to convince you. I'm about to show help to convince you. I think of that probably should be on the end of that sentence. Convince you of that. Let's put an of that in there. Of that. Oh, I've lost my space. Yeah. Cockerell Wright shook his head. Let me call Vaughan back. He can take my dispatches back to the department. If you insist. Cockerell Wright pulled a cell phone from his pocket and had a quick conversation. He's on his way. 5 minutes. We can go to the garden after that. Waiter! He called, clicking his fingers in the air until someone answered. Fetch my jacket. 10 minutes later, the two men left the building via Blackrod's garden. There were soldiers everywhere, and it became apparent that nobody would be getting back into the building that way, at least not for the time being. Farnborough led a curious Cockerell Wright along the road, which had been closed to traffic from Parliament Square southwards. There was a cordon of armed soldiers lining the road, and a large articulated lorry parked up just outside the entrance to the gardens. It looked rather like a television outside broadcast unit, with various dishes and other communications devices poking out from the top. A young soldier in a captain's uniform noticed Lord Farnborough and stepped forward. Lord Farnborough, I'm Captain Banks. Major Sinclair is waiting for you inside for final instructions. All of the other soldiers were wearing their green uniforms, but Captain Banks was in combats. Farnborough followed the man past a couple of rows of silent soldiers and was surprised to see a couple of Yukunda glowing gently amongst their ranks. He had not expected to see that. During the Great War, a lot of the people that had been conscientious objectors turned out to be Yukunda, but that had been a different time. Is that relevant? Actually, it kind of is, actually, thinking about it. Banks, Cockerell, Wright and Farnborough entered the truck via some steps. Inside was a command post, and standing at the back waiting was Major Sinclair. He greeted Farnborough warmly, and the two men shook hands. It was obvious they knew each other well. Welcome, my lord, the officer greeted him formally. I'm sure one day you will explain what all of this is about. What's the cover story? What's the cover story? Asked Cockerell Wright with interest. Practice for uncovering a weapon of mass destruction, said Sinclair with a smile. Total bollocks, of course. I understand this is for your benefit, Minister. Cockerell Wright did not know the man, but seemed pleased that he had been recognised. How long will it take? I have a lot to do. Sinclair shrugged. Lord Farnborough? Not long, said Farnborough. He glared at the older... At the older? Minister. He's not older, he's younger. He glared at the minister. Nobody's to enter the garden when we are in there. Nobody is even to look. I assume that everybody has been given those instructions. To the last man, replied Sinclair, from the moment you enter. Cockerel Wright felt a little nervous as Captain Banks and Major Sinclair accompanied him back down the steps. The soldiers parted in front of one of the heavily guarded public gates at the order of the captain, and Cockerel Wright and Farnborough walked in. At another command from Banks, the soldiers closed their line with their backs to the garden. Everywhere Cockerel Wright looked on one side of the garden, he could see the backs of armed soldiers. They stretched along the side of the garden closest to the road. "I have to say, this is a bit odd," commented Cockerel Wright as they walked along the path towards the embankment, past the statues of the burghers of Calais. "I'm a little nervous." "What I'm going to show you is something you need to know," said Farnborough, turning on the grass and walking parallel to the line of trees next to the embankment. Cockerel Wright could see military boats lined up on the river, again with armed soldiers standing on the deck, all with their backs to him. The scale of it genuinely shocked him, and he did wonder for a moment how much all of this had cost, and who the hell Farnborough knew to be able to pull it off. They continued walking until they reached a large, old, thick-trunked oak tree. Farnborough turned and smiled. "I've given the oak tree. I seem to give trees a lot of capital letters that they don't deserve. Or do they?" Farnborough turned and smiled. "This is it. We're here. You wanted to show me a tree?" Cockerel Wright was astonished. "Well, you are the Minister for the Department of the Environment. I'm confused. Stand in front of the tree." Cockerel Wright was both annoyed and confused, but there was something in Farnborough's tone. He did as he said, feeling foolish. "What do you want me to do now? Hug it?" "No," said Farnborough. "Put both your hands in front of you and touch it." Farnborough raised a mobile phone in front of him and pretended to access an app, but he was actually recording a video. "That's ridiculous. Just do it," Farnborough snapped. "I shall do no such thing," cried Cockerel Wright. Farnborough grabbed his left hand and forced it towards the tree. Cockerel Wright kept his fists closed. "Open your hand," demanded Farnborough. When Cockerel Wright did not, Farnborough raised his cane and smacked the closed fist rather sharply with it. In shock, Cockerel Wright opened his hand and Farnborough forced the palm onto the tree. Pushed his palm. Onto the bark. "How dare you!" yelled Cockerel Wright. "Help!" "They are under instructions to ignore any sounds that come from here," said Farnborough in a sinister tone. "Now, your other hand." "No, absolutely not." Cockerel Wright tried to yank the hand in contact with the tree away, but found that he could not. "What the hell?" Farnborough raised his cane again. "Your other hand, now." "No!" shrieked Cockerel Wright. Then he realised that the bark had risen slightly around the hand that was already on the tree. He tried again to pull it away, but it would not budge. He felt the bark squeeze his fingers. It felt like his hand was in a vice. He screamed in fear. "Put your other hand on the tree," demanded Farnborough, "or she will hurt you some more." "She? Just do it." Cockerel Wright did as he was told. As soon as he did so, the pain in his left hand stopped. The tree was no longer squeezing him. He tried to move both of his hands, but found that he could not. A deep voice formed in his head. "I am Idrisil, the Empress of the Trees. Soon you will meet our ambassador, Veronica Arden. You will do as she says, otherwise there will be consequences." "What?" He blinked. It was dark. He felt like he'd been transported somewhere new, but when he looked around, he realised it was the same place, Victoria Tower Gardens. There were searchlights, presumably erected by the army, around the perimeter. He gasped. A voice made him jump. "Are you done?" It was Farnborough, and he was sitting on a deck chair and smoking a cigar, empty fast food packaging littering the floor by his feet. "That took longer than I expected. It's almost 10 o'clock. I've got a now in there. I'm just going to lose the word now. And put in an exclamation mark. It's almost 10 o'clock. Cockerel Wright stepped back, not registering for a moment that his hands were free, if sticky. 10 o'clock at night? Yes. Meaning 8 hours have passed? Yes. Cockerel Wright took a step back and was suddenly aware that his trousers were wet from where he'd wet himself. Damp. To avoid the repetition of the word. He stepped backwards and felt a further unpleasant sensation in his sensation. "Did you get the message?" Cockerel Wright paused for a moment, his embarrassment and anger temporarily at the back of his mind. "The trees are sentient, and they have demands. Your girl next week is delivering directives from them to you." "That's right," said Farnborough. Cockerel Wright nodded. His face was a combination of surprise and curiosity. "I think I'd better clear my diary." "Good call," said Farnborough. "Sorry to have been so forceful, old man. Let's get you back to the command centre. There's a tent with a shower there for you and a change of clothes. Cockerel Wright shook his head. The trees are alive, and they want to talk to me. Do you know what they want? I have no idea, lied Farnborough. You'll find out next week. He pulled the hip flask and a clear hanky from his pocket and tried to hand them to Cockerel Wright. For your hands, he explained. Cockerel Wright looked at his hand and sniffed them. Should I tell the PM? He said, surprised by the smell of sap that filled his nostrils. That's up to you, stated Farnborough. But you will definitely be having a conversation with her next week. She'll never believe me, said Cockerel Wright in a daze. Well, said Farnborough, clapping on the back as they walked towards the gate in the command post. I can always arrange another military training exercise for her. Exercise for her, exclamation mark. Right, that was quite a short chapter. That was relatively easy. I'm going to run it through Grammarly, and then I'm going to stop. It's been nearly 3 hours, and I've got 3 chapters done, which is good. I kind of wanted to get 4 or 5 done today, so I'm not going to do it now. I might come back and do another session this afternoon or evening, probably this evening. We shall see how I feel. Let's just, as I say, let's run this one through Grammarly. So file, export to Word. Yes. Come on. Okay. And Grammarly. All of them wearing their green one was in combat gear. I'm going to swap those words around. Right, there we go. So that's done. So download the edited version of the file. Grammarly. Oh no, that is Grammarly, you idiot. So right then, let's just make sure that's pasted back into the original file. Format it appropriately. There we go. So that's good. That's another 3 chapters signed off this morning. As I say, I had done quite a lot of work leading up to this, so I have read through them a couple of times in some cases. But yeah, so that's that done. We just drag the file into the completed folder. There we go. So that's chapter 14 edited. That's not all I'm going to do today, but it's all I'm going to do for now because I've been on 3 hours. We haven't got that many people watching, so I'm not going to raid out today. If it was a few more, I might do. Thank you so much for people who've interacted. So particularly Coffee Quills, Itanchi, Angel Faye 87, and earlier on Bow Street Society. I will come back later today, I expect, and try and do the next 2 chapters. Chapter 16, yeah, because that gets me to the end of chapter 16, which is really an important part of the story, because that's effectively, it's where, yeah, it's a kind of a turning point in the story. The directives get delivered, and then Mackenzie runs away and just sets off a whole chain of events which potentially undermines their credibility a little bit, which is fun. Okay, I'm done. As I said, thank you everybody who's interacted. I'm off. I shall be back later. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.